Online students, am I audible? Please confirm. All of you have the handouts? Just see the page 1 of your mains handout, G20. Online students, am I audible, visible? Please confirm so that we can start the class. First, we'll just see the trend very briefly, because today we are taking mostly the topics of IR. IR remains very important for this exam. In prelims, you can expect, depending upon the year, 7 to 8 questions directly from IR. And mains also, it is mostly fixed 4 questions in paper 2. Question number 9 and 10 would be of 10 marker, and question number 19 and 20. Okay, so these are the 50 marks. दो 15 नंबर के, दो 10 नंबर के, तो 50 नंबर आपके उसके ऊपर डिपेंडेंट है. Sometimes international affairs question can even come in GS1 by linking it with the resource potential. Like whenever question has come on Africa, how does India see its position in Africa? It has come in the GS paper 1. Sometimes question comes with respect to harnessing of resources of Arctic Circle, etc., etc. So those kinds of questions you will always find in your GS paper 1. So let us first try to understand what kind of questions UPSC is asking. If I see the trend of last 2 years, many questions have been asked on the many questions have been asked on international organizations. Like see this is the new kind of pattern which has been started by UPSC. That virus of conflict is affecting the functioning of SCO. It's a very harsh word, virus of conflict. Anyway, and it has come in the final exam. And what does this say? In the light of the above statement, point out the role of India in mitigating the problems. So it is just asking, since a statement has been given, we have to also write about the problems which are being faced by SCO. SCO is a very diverse group, as we can see. Okay, anyway, see the second question. Indian diaspora has scaled new heights in the West. Today when we will discuss about India-Canada relationship, we will further understand the importance of Indian diaspora. We have the largest diaspora in the world. Okay, and what UPSC has asked, describe its economic and political benefits for India. So diaspora and its direct connection with economic and political benefits. Then if we see this question, again it's related to international organization. The expansion and strengthening of NATO and a stronger US-Europe strategic partnership works well for India. But here the question is not straightforward. They have asked, what is your opinion about this statement? It means the opinion can vary depending upon the personality looking at this relationship. Give reasons and examples to support your answer. Now, this kind of question nobody can teach in the class. Try to understand. When we are taking any specific topic, okay, we'll give you a lot of examples. Like today when we'll discuss about this IMEC corridor. In IMEC corridor, you'll see there is a partnership between USA as well as European Union. We'll understand it very comprehensively, but these kinds of questions are to be dealt with the help of information collected from different topics which we'll discuss in the class. So you have to become very sharp with respect to कहाँ कौन सा point को use करना है. And finally, if you see, sea is an important component of the cosmos. So they've asked about the role of IMO in protecting environment and enhancing maritime safety and security. Now, IMO is not a very recent organization. And when question comes on IMO, majority of us will say, ये कहाँ से आ गया? ये तो था ही नहीं. That's why some of the static organization also we have to do for prelims as well as mains examination. इसका ध्यान रखना. We had discussed in the previous class that our current affairs strategy will be three-pronged. First one will focus on static element like this IMO. ये news में यार हर साल एक दो चीज तो आई जानी है. But do you think a full-fledged question can come on IMO? वो तो UPSC के हाथ में है. So we have to be sure कि static पढ़ना ही पढ़ना है. Second, from mains perspective, we have to also focus upon the long-term trend. Like this NATO and European Union relationship. It's not something that happened last year. Okay, Russia started first annexation of Crimea in 2014. Then it was expelled from G8, and later on, right now the war is going on in Ukraine. So it's a long-term trend of last 10 years. So these kinds of topics are also going to be covered in the class. And finally, the recent affairs or the current affairs that we say of last 1 year. Like here, if we talk about diaspora, so lots of प्रवासी भारतीय दिवस हर साल तो नहीं होता, हर 2 साल में एक बार होता है, but these are the current trends that we see. So try to understand. Today we have selected 3 topics for mains. First one is G20 because you can expect a question on G20. Prelims में भी 2-3 बार question आ चुका है. And if we see the second topic, it is about Indian Middle East Europe corridor. So it's a very important economic interdependence project which is being right now only visualized. Okay, what it will happen, it will not happen, that we'll see. And finally comes the tensions between India and Canada. Okay, because UPSC can ask multiple types of question, and in this we are going to cover majority of the topics which are important for this examination. Now let us quickly start with the first topic. So when we see any mains topic, try to have a lot of dimensions on this. Okay, like the first one is why in the news, because a question can come directly from here. Like there can be large number of questions on G20, but we have to see what kind of question can come on G20, and that is very, very relevant. When we have seen questions on various other organizations like SCO, they asked about that the virus of conflict. A similar kind of question can even come on G20. So that is what you have to remember. Why is this in news? Second, what is G20? Some of the areas of prelims will be covered along with this mains topic, because mains topic में देखो बहुत ज़्यादा discussion होगा. Composition. This composition has been asked by UPSC. So we have to understand the overall composition. And many of the organizations of the world, they are going through an expansion phase. Like all of us right now know, African Union has become a part of G20. Okay, similarly if we see BRICS has also expanded this year itself. We have seen introduction of various other countries like Argentina has become a part of it, etc. So expansion, the composition will keep on changing. You cannot put a blind eye towards that, because in prelims this can be a big problem. So we'll understand about composition, because there are always certain generic point which can be created when we have understanding of composition. वो मैं आपको सिखाऊंगा जेनरिक पॉइंट लिखने कैसे होते हैं मेंस में, बिकॉज हर इशू को याद रख पाना अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है. जेनेसिस, व्हाट्स द ओवरऑल नेचर ऑफ दिस G20, व्हाई इट वाज क्रिएटेड, क्या क्या ऐसे इश्यूज हुए थे दैट दे हैड टू क्रिएटेड, ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल वर्किंग, इंपॉर्टेंस, व्हाट इज द क्रिटिसिज्म, व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ इंडिया. लाइक दे हैव आस्क्ड कि हाउ इंडिया कैन मिटिगेट द conflict in SCO. Next year it can be in G20. Okay, then recent summit, what are the key takeaways that we have from the recent summit, which you have to remember for prelims as well as mains examination, because whenever you have to write about the way forward, what should be the way forward of the next G20, there you have to pick up some points from the summit itself. And last one comes the पाथ है, तो उसी के अंदर उसको मर्ज, लगभग एक जैसा ही पार्ट है, और क्या इश्यूज वगैरह है उसको कैसे रिजॉल्व करना है. राइट, सो इफ वी टॉक अबाउट G20, all of us know it is in news because for India this is a very magnificent event. For the first time we were hosting G20, and that is a very big thing. Why? If we see G20, then this G20 is mostly about these many countries. You have to just try to remember the composition. Okay, like if we see, India is a part of it. All right, but along with India you have to see which all countries. Like if we see from South America, we have Argentina, we also have Brazil. These two are the countries that we have from southern part of America. If we see from Northern America, so Northern America, all of us know we have USA. Okay, along with it we also have Mexico. Mexico is there, as well as Canada. So if we talk about North America, these three are the states which are part of it. Then if we talk about Europe, we have Germany. Germany is a part of it. Okay, Italy is there, France, United Kingdom, even Russia, even though it's a part of both Europe as well as Asia. So Russia is a part of it. So these are the countries that we can see. Then if we come to Africa, so in Africa we have South Africa is a part of it. Right now we also have African Union, but least amount of representation can be seen from here. If we see the rest of the Asia, so we have India, Indonesia is a part of it. Please remember, Indonesia is a part of it. We have Japan, China is a part of it. Turkey has renamed itself, है ना, जैसे बैंगलोर का बेंगलुरु हुआ था, इन्होंने टर्की को कहा नहीं, स्पेलिंग में मजा नहीं आ रहा है, so we want Turkey, so इन्होंने चेंज कर लिया. And then we have Saudi Arabia. European Union as a group is a part of this. From Oceania we have Australia. Okay, so this is the grouping that we have, because before understanding anything, what is the objective, etc., etc., we can have to have this understanding of the grouping. So what do we see from this? Yes, it represents majority of the advanced as well as emerging economies. Advanced economy means those economy which have already stabilized to a certain level. Okay, like we see the case of USA or many of the countries of Europe. But on the other hand, we have emerging markets like India. All of us know that India has now become one of the most powerful country in the world. We are in the top 5 if we see in terms of nominal GDP, and within next 6 to 7 years, I think by 2030 will even surpass Japan as well as Germany. If we see overall, there are four countries above us. The first is USA itself, the second would be China, third one we have Japan and Germany. वो थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर नीचे होता रहता है depending upon their growth rates, किसका क्या चल रहा है. Okay, and finally fifth one is India. We have recently surpassed our colonizer, that is United Kingdom. So that is done for us. Anyway, now please try to understand the grouping. Grouping is very important because in prelims these questions are going to come. कुछ ऐसे rich countries हैं which are not part of it, like Singapore. Singapore देख के लगता है यार ये तो होना ही चाहिए, ये तो बहुत rich country है, but Singapore is not a part of G20 as such. और इसी के बेसिस पे आपको एलिमिनेशन सीखना पड़ता है प्रीलिम्स में कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग आर द मेंबर्स ऑफ G20. इंडिया थोड़ा ना देगा उसमें आपके लिए आसान करने के लिए लाइफ. दैट इज दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू गिव दैट. सऊदी अरेबिया के साथ में ईरान ऐड कर देगा, एंड देन यू विल बी लाइक हाँ 50-50 किया था. देयर इज नो 50-50 व्हेन इट कम्स टू रिप्रेजेंटेशन. यू हैव टू ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, यस लॉजिक्स मे वर्क, but every time logic will work, nobody has a certainty about it. So that's why remembering accurately will reduce your time, and at the same time marks भी आ जाएंगे. कोरिया भी इसका पार्ट है, रिपब्लिक ऑफ कोरिया. So this is the membership that we have today, but this group did not start like this. Okay, today we have G20, but before G20 we had a group of 5, then we had a group of 6, G7 was also there, then comes G8, and later on this G8 again turned back to G7. Okay, तो इसकी एक पूरी स्टोरी है, ठीक है. You can just write down. In 1973 there was Gulf oil crisis. All of us know about it. Okay, in 1973 there was oil crisis. The prices of oil were increasing. They started affecting the whole world economy. And as a result of this, we see that meeting was done of 4 countries. You can write down USA, Germany, France and UK. USA, Germany, France and UK. And this happened in March 1973. Okay, March 1973. Finance ministers met. You have to remember in G20, previously it was only a group of finance ministers and central bank governors or your RBI, just like in case of India. So this happened in March 1973. By June 1973, Japan became part of this grouping. So initially it was G4. Within next 3 to 4 months, it became G5. So first one to become part of it was Japan. Then within next 2 years, then it was the first formal summit. Initial 2, they were informal meetings which happened initially as G4, then the expansion of Japan. In November 1975, G5 met and it led to the addition of Italy. Okay. In November 1975, the first formal summit, it happened in Paris or France, and we see the addition of Italy. In 1976, the next year itself, we see inclusion of Canada. Canada became a part of it. So by 1976, we had seen the development of G7. Starting from 1973 till 1976, we have shifted from G4 to G7. So इसलिए ज़्यादा relevance किस group का रहता है? G7. And even rest तो use भी नहीं होता. These words are not used in the vocabulary. You will not find it in the newspaper. But just for the sake of basic level understanding, you can remember. Alright, so G7 is the one which is important. Russia was made a part of it after the end of Cold War. Okay, so in 1997, all of us know USSR dissolved. In which year? 1991. So thereafter, the relationship became good between Russia and USA. So in 1997, Russia became a part of it, and that's how the group of G8 was created in 1997. Okay, Russia remained a part of it till 2014. What happened in 2014? Annexation of Crimea. In 2014, Crimea was annexed by Russia from Ukraine. So that's why it was expelled in 2014. So again, the group now is going towards G7. Okay, why are we understanding about G7? Because G7 was mostly a grouping of advanced economies. These are the economies which were the earliest industrialized economy in the world. Okay, but when they started facing pressure, okay, this pressure came in 1997. You have to remember why G20 was created. So the first big issue, it starts from 1997, Asian financial crisis. Majority of the countries of Asia, specifically East Asia, they were facing lots of trouble in their economy, and this happened. Do you know why in India we do not have complete conversion of FDI instantly? क्यों नहीं होता? Because it can lead to flight of capital to other countries. Okay, this had happened in this Asian financial crisis. Okay, because इसलिए हर कोई कहता है यार FDI ज़्यादा अच्छा है than FII, because FII money can go anytime. So complete convertible India में इसलिए allowed नहीं है, because we have learned this from Asian financial crisis. So in 1999 itself, this group was created. Okay, and in this group they asked about a forum of finance ministers and central bank governors. Only discussion will be about which aspect? Economics. Okay, in 1999 we see inclusion of finance ministers plus central bank governors. Like in case of central bank governor is the governor of RBI. Central bank is the word which is used for that. But we again saw a major crisis which came in 2007-8. All of us know about the crisis which starts in which country? USA. Okay, So the subprime crisis, okay, there are always these kinds of safe bets. Like whenever we say कि if we are buying government bonds, they are the safest to invest, कि पैसा तो वापस मिल ही जाएगा. But suppose if the government is Pakistan, so government bonds की कोई value नहीं रहेगी. So similarly, in USA, there was an understanding that if somebody is purchasing house, they are bound to return back to the बैंक के पास पैसा तो वापस आ ही जाएगा. So that's why maximum, जैसे हर चीज को एक रेटिंग दी जाती है ना, A, B, B minus, C, different types of ratings are given to different kinds of financial instrument. So those loans which were taken by people for their houses, those were given the highest rating. But it was these people who started defaulting one after the other, and that's why it is known as subprime crisis. So after this subprime crisis, the G20, it was upgraded to the head of state. It was upgraded to the head of state or government after the financial crisis of 2007-8, right? And in 2009, you can see in your handout on page number 2, this history of G20 has been given. History of G20 is been, you can remember this. Like in prelims, UPSC can ask any kind of question from here. Mains का तो हम सोचेंगे अभी कैसा question बन सकता है, but this is what you have to remember from here. Is it clear to all of you? Initially, the biggest important group for the whole of economic affair, it was G7. This G7 was upgraded to G8 with the inclusion of Russia in 1997. But Russia was expelled eventually in 2014. So this G7 eventually realized that we have to also include emerging markets like India. Okay, and if they are not included in this, then the maximum growth is not going to happen now in USA. It's going to happen in India because we have the scope for it. एक बार आपका बेस बढ़ जाता है ना, उसके बाद ग्रोथ लाना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है. Like if you see Germany, the growth rate would be hardly 1%. In Japan, it is 1 to 2%. In India, even though we have not touched our full potential of 10%, 11%, but still we are 5 to 6%, and still we remain the most growing economy. That's why you cannot ignore countries like India now. We have a large democracy, okay? We have one of the biggest population, now the biggest population in the world. तो चाइना ने भी सेलिब्रेट कर लिया कि हमारे से आगे कोई तो निकला नेगेटिव पैरामीटर्स में, है ना. इंडिया ने बोला हिंदी चीनी भाई भाई हो जाएगा, ये सब टेंशन मत लो. So eventually we have the biggest market in the world right now. So for our own businesses, we don't have to look outside. We can only think about our own nation. जब कम population होती है ना, expanding business become very difficult. You go to Bhutan, the whole population is 7.5 lakh. अब 7.5 लाख से ज़्यादा यूपीएससी सिविल सर्विसेज देते हैं हर साल इंडिया में. So it purely depends upon the market size. So India remains a very important part of the global economic order, and that is what is the reflection we see in G20. This G20 is something which you will remember. Okay, kindly see the structure of G20. See your handout. The structure of G20. The summit is going to happen annually, every year. This is the first point you have to remember. Second, under the leadership of a rotating presidency, it keeps on changing. Like this year it was India, and next year it's going to go towards Brazil. Okay, so it's a rotating presidency. There is no permanent secretariat. When we will talk about the limitations of G20, one of the problem would be no permanent secretariat. When we do not have permanent secretariat, ensuring the implementations of the decisions, it becomes a difficult task. Okay, so it does not have a permanent secretary, and it is supported by previous, current and future holders of the presidency, and all of these three, when they come together, they are known as troika. Like suppose next year UPSC asks you a question in prelims that the troika is linked with which of the following organization: SCO, SARC, European Union, and last one would be G20. अभी troika is an accepted word, हमने अलग से बनाया नहीं है. This is, they always say there is a system of troika, the previous presidency, current and the future. They will come together, and these three countries will take care of the overall efforts which are being put forward by G20. So I want all of you to remember this. पर प्रीलिम देखो, मैं तुम्हें प्रीलिम्स के लिए बहुत चीज़ें समझा सकता हूँ जो कोई और समझा नहीं सकता. बिकॉज व्हेन आई यूज्ड टू स्टडी, आई न्यू कि यहाँ से क्वेश्चन बनेगा, कि अगर मुझे परेशान करना होगा तो यहाँ पे लाएंगे. Everybody will read newspaper, but they will not be able to catch this. This is what we need to remember. और जहां पे मैंने आपको बोल दिया ना कि इसको याद कर लेना, तो कर लेना. This is for your future. मुझे कुछ नहीं मिलने वाला ट्रॉय का याद करके. It is for your future कि next year when you have the competitive advantage, तो छोड़ना मत उसको. और ये जो चीज पे मैं emphasize कर रहा हूँ, I'm doing this because this is where other people will not be able to do it. And we have to remember this troika. क्या है ये troika? Okay. Let us see what is the overall agenda structure पे बात कर लेते हैं. Broad economic issues it talks about, but now its agenda is expanding. Previously it was only focusing about economies. Now see trade, sustainable development, health, agriculture, energy, environment, climate change, as well as anti-corruption. All of these things have become agenda of G20 over the last few years. And this is what we are going to remember. Okay. Yes. So let us see. I hope the membership of G20 is clear to all of you. There are few things you have to do on daily basis. कि जब भी कोई क्लास हो रही है तो जाके उसको रिवाइज करना. Remember the facts which are relevant. Majority of the facts that we have done so far, they are relevant from the point of view of prelims. But mains analysis is again going to be very, very vital for all of us. Okay. Now, these are three very important facts which you can remember for introduction. Okay. They reflect how much pass out of global GDP? 85% of global GDP. There are three numbers. 85% of global GDP, 75% of total international trade, and 2/3 of the world's population. So in a way, it has become a very super group. We have more than 190 countries in the world. These 20 countries are coming together. Okay, 20 means 19 countries are there, and now we have two union. One is European Union, and the other one now is African Union. 85% of global GDP, 75% of international trade, and 2/3 of the world's population. And please see this graph. If suppose a question comes in comparison to G7, why G20 is becoming more relevant? So ये chart थोड़ा सा पुराना है on the basis of data of 2021. Okay, now kindly see this above. This is the share in the global GDP. It was 80% by 2021, and now it has decreased to further 85%. And see the graph of G7. It is now going down from 1990. It was above 60%, and now it has come roughly around 42 to 43%. क्यों बनाया भाई? इस reason तो समझ में आया आपको? Why G20 is becoming more relevant? There is a divergence. G7 is going down, but G20 is going up. So अगर हम आज की केस में देखेंगे, तो if this is 85, so this is 42. So roughly double हो गया है share of G20 in the global world GDP. These facts are going to be important. Like suppose if somebody asks about the relevance of G20, so in the relevance of G20 you can write about it. If a comparative question comes on G7, if a fact comes, okay, in your prelims, the comparison between G7 and G20, and the percentage of share of G20 in global world GDP, it is more than double of that of G7. अब फिर वहाँ बैठे हो आप, डबल था नहीं था, फिर ऐसा कैसे होता है, मैंने तो पढ़ा था नहीं पढ़ा था, वो मत शुरू करना. That's why the way you understand facts becomes very relevant for the exam. And these three are the minimum I would expect from your side. You can always make a triangle and show the three important limbs of G20: global GDP, trade, as well as population. So these are the three things you'll always remember about this grouping. I hope this is clear. In 1999, it was founded after the Asian financial crisis. Majority of the country they were suffering. In 2008, it was upgraded to the level of heads of state after the financial crisis of 2007-2008. And in 2009, it was designated as the premier forum for international economic cooperation. So in 2009, so from 2009 till 2023, it is on a stabilized form. Okay, and it will be the premium forum always for the economic cooperation. Then if we see the structure annually, please remember this, it happens annually under leadership of a rotating presidency. No permanent secretariat. These are the statements which are absolute statement in the prelims, that G20 does not have a permanent secretary. बहुत पढ़ के बुरा लगता है फिर एकदम नहीं, सही में नहीं इनके पास. क्या कर रही है 85% ग्लोबल जीडीपी का, इतना 75% ट्रेड का क्या कर रहे हैं जब एक मतलब छत नहीं है इन लोगों के पास. सो इट बिकम्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. तो ये बहुत क्लियर रट्टा मारना पड़ेगा कि इट हैज नो परमानेंट सेक्रेटेरिएट. एंड 2023 ट्रोइका, लास्ट ईयर इट वाज इंडोनेशिया, द करंट ईयर इज इंडिया एंड नेक्स्ट ईयर इज ब्राजील. सपोज इफ दिस क्वेश्चन कम्स, विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग आर द पार्ट ऑफ 2023 ट्रोइका. जब बकवास पेपर बनता है ना तो ऐसे ही क्वेश्चन सामने मिलते हैं. एंड देन एवरीबडी विल से द क्वेश्चन वाज डिफिकल्ट, ट्रेंड हैज चेंज्ड, दिस एंड दैट. अरे पास हो जाके मेंस लिखो. लाइफ में बहुत प्रॉब्लम्स है देखने की, ये अननेसेसरी एनालिसिस में फंसना नहीं है कभी भी. तो ये चीजें ध्यान रखनी है फ्रॉम प्रीलिम्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. ठीक है. इंडोनेशिया से पहले इट वाज इटली. अपना भारत महान, तो सबसे बीच में क्या आएगा? इंडिया. Here we have Brazil and the next one would be South Africa. So in a way, if I see, अगर मैं एक स्टेटमेंट बनाऊँ आपके लिए प्रीलिम्स के लिए, that from 2023 till 2025 the G20 summits are going to happen in BRICS countries. हाँ या ना? India, Brazil, South Africa. Yes, it is going to happen in the BRICS country. और स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम दिस ईयर, जब नेक्स्ट ईयर ब्राजील में होगा, द ट्रोइका विल बी पार्ट ऑफ ब्रिक्स कंट्रीज. देखो एनालिसिस जब करोगे ना, माइंड विल स्ट्राइक. हाँ ठीक है, आई नाउ ऑल ऑफ यू रिमेंबर, यू विल नॉट फॉरगेट इट नाउ. अब चाहे प्रीलिम्स में आप पढ़ के जाना चाहे मत पढ़ के जाना, यू विल रिमेंबर बिकॉज वंस द एनालिसिस कम्स इनटू द माइंड लाइक दिस कि हाँ समझ आ गया. दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट मोर फ्रॉम प्रीलिम्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. बट सपोज इफ आई आस्क अ क्वेश्चन इन द मेंस कि व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ ब्रिक्स, basic level question, what is the potential of BRICS? So can we write this one point even in the potential of BRICS, that BRICS has become so important that it is leading the presidency of G20 countries and it is going to be the troika in the recent scenario. अब ये पॉइंट आपके किसी मैगजीन में नहीं मिलने वाला, आपको बैठ के कर लेना इसको, ना न्यूज़पेपर में मिलने वाला आपको. ये सब सामने देख के, ये पॉइंट जनरेशन का तरीका होता है इन द मेंस, वेयर यू स्टडी समथिंग and you know how to use it as a point. It becomes a unique point and suddenly UPSC 6 की नए अवतार आ गए हैं. They are going to become the next diplomats. So whenever you see anything, try to find its relevance. Don't be in a kind of stuck kind of mentality कि नहीं इतना ही पेपर में लिखा था, इतना ही सोचना है. सारी जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, they are interconnected with each other one way or the other. Like there is SAARC is there, ASEAN is there. किसी न किसी तरीके से कुछ ना कुछ कनेक्शन है सबके बीच में और हमें उस कनेक्शन को हमेशा यूटिलाइज करना है. वी हैव टू रिमेंबर द बेसिक पॉइंट्स एंड देन लिंक देम आल्सो. ओके, सो इफ वी सी इन जनरल दिस ईयर मोदी जी बहुत भाषण दिया, ठीक है, ही बिकेम एट रिमेन इन द लाइमलाइट आल्सो समहाउ. बट एनीवे, दिस इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर इंडिया. व्हाई इज दिस growing importance of G20 over G7? One thing is very clear, like we have just seen from that basic fact, at the percentage of share in the global GDP, the G7 is declining, G20 is on the rise. This is the first point. But along with this growing economic importance, you cannot think that you can leave behind India. You see the revenue of these major companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, कहाँ से आ रहा है आज की डेट में? सबसे ज्यादा फास्ट रेवेन्यू कहाँ से इंक्रीज हो रहा है? फ्रॉम इंडिया. So that's why G20 is always going to be important. So number one, what is the most important? Growing economic importance of India as well as China. Second, global decision making. This is again very very relevant. Third is inclusivity. Look, the previous order, whenever we talk about G7, they are nothing but the allies of USA. Russia was included as a G8, but उसको फिर भगा दिया. So G7 is more about the allies of USA. So it is not inclusive in nature. It doesn't include the major countries like China or even India. That's why, like if you see China, the economy is at least 2/3 of USA today. So we cannot escape that. You cannot leave China behind. And finally, even geopolitical relevance. There are lots of things which are going to be important, okay, and we'll discuss about it one after the other. But whenever we talk about the relevance or the growing importance of G20, these keywords should come into your mind. Mains answer writing clearly depends upon keywords, and if keywords are missing, you will not get good marks. Like if I say this growing economic importance, so this can be one keyword for you. ग्लोबल डिसीजन मेकिंग और ग्लोबल रूल मेकिंग, ग्लोबल गवर्नेंस आर्किटेक्चर, सबका सेम मीनिंग है, कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है इसके अंदर. बट यू हैव टू रिमेंबर दिस. इंक्लूसिविटी इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज इंडिया इज ऑलवेज टॉकिंग अबाउट मल्टीलेटरलिज्म. इंडिया इज नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट बाइलेटरलिज्म अनलेस वी बिकम द वर्ल्ड पावर, तब देखेंगे हम. बट अभी आर इंटरेस्ट आर ओनली गोइंग टू बी सर्व्ड बाय multilateralism. That's why the word inclusivity in the international relation is going to become very important. And finally, geopolitical relevance will always be there because all the major countries are a part. Even Russia, which has been expelled from G8, is a part of G20. So this is how it is. The growing importance remains prominent. Okay, then kindly see your handout. Come to page number 2. We'll quickly go through the detail. What is the role of India in G20? What is India doing in this? So let us see very quickly. Number 1. So if we see India's rapid economic growth, okay, of 6 to 7% positioned at one of the fastest growing economies. Like here we can include the keyword which is given by IMF also. IMF considers India as a sweet spot in world economy. Okay, this word has been used by Modi ji multiple times. Indian economy remains a sweet spot in world economy. So that's why when India is going at 6%, 7%, hopefully after that reduction and further the manner in which capital expenditure is being done by the government of India, it can further increase in the coming times with the improvement of recession. Like right now, all of you know that in USA as well as Europe, there is a kind of recession, even though it's not that much harsh as the previous ones, but a recession is going on. Once that will go through, India's exports are bound to increase further. That is first thing which you will remember in economic growth and domestic policies. Second, the initiative like Make in India, Digital India, support manufacturing, job creation as well as digital infrastructure improvement. Digital infrastructure is becoming a very important theme in G20. When we will discuss about the declaration, this year there was Delhi declaration of G20. What all important points were there? This is going to be one of the points we will see. Then free trade advocacy, yes, this is very very important. Like if we see China, what happens with India and China trade? All of you know the bilateral trade. We have a trade deficit of more than $50 billion, million nahi, billion dollars, more than $50 billion, and it happens because China doesn't open its economy to India. We are strong in services sector, China is very strong in goods sector. Further, Indian in manufacturing or Indian industries are very much dependent upon China. That's why naturally we have to open our market, but they do not have the tendency to do the same, or they do not come up with reciprocity. That's why it is very important that we should have free trade advocacy. Same is the case with Europe also. All of you know that India is trying to negotiate a free trade agreement with European Union, but this is stuck for many years. And why is it happening? Because India wants that there should be free movement of people. देखो हम सब लोग एक चीज में बहुत अच्छे हैं, जुगाड़ में. So in professional services, India is always going to be better than others. But European Union doesn't want that. That's why free trade advocacy remains very very important for India. These examples that I am telling you, you have to remember them because in newspaper में भी ऐसा directly नहीं आता है. वो लिख ये point लिख के छोड़ देंगे. ठीक है? You have to pick up because when you write your answers in the mains, these points should come up with it. Substantiation will always happen with the points. Next you see financial stability and reform. This is very very important. India cannot grow alone. If there is financial instability in any part of the world, this is going to affect our interest. है ना, आज की डेट में बोलते हैं ना, because of globalization the world has become a global village. Like recently there were bank failures in America. All of you must have heard about the South Valley Bank etc. बहुत सारे banks वहाँ पे fail हुए हैं. Do you think it is good for India? There was a direct connection. Indian startups, when they get funding, those banks are the one where they open their accounts. अब वहाँ को बैंक ही bankrupt हो गया, अपना startup salary नहीं दे पा रहा है. So we cannot escape. So that's why financial stability and reforms becomes very important. There is one point given here, Basel III framework. Basel is a place in which country? Switzerland. It's in Switzerland. So it's a framework which has been created for the banking industry. This was created in the wake of financial crisis of 2007-2008. Okay, and this is being collectively done by 28 countries. You can remember 28 countries have come together and they have come up with this Basel III framework. And under the Basel III framework, what happens? Like, why do banks fail? What is the basic reason for the failure of banks? Yes. So yes, bad loans is there. But why do bad loans happen? Bad loans के भी कुछ तो reason होंगे. Some of them could happen because of a downturn in economy. Like when pandemic started, lockdown was established throughout India. So it affects the day-to-day businesses. So naturally the bad loans will increase. But there can also be certain willful defaulter like Vijay Mallya, है ना? They do not have money to pay back to the banks, but मौज मस्ती करने के लिए थोड़ा सा ना जिंदगी ना मिलेगी दोबारा philosophy. So willful defaulters are always there. So suppose whenever we talk about bad loans, all of us understand this keyword NPA, non-performing asset. It is also having two kinds of denomination, gross NPA and net NPA. हमेशा किसी भी बैंक का रिजल्ट देखना, ठीक है? ये दोनों टर्म्स साथ में आती हैं. In order to ensure that your banking operation are not affected by bad loans or high NPA, there are always certain requirements. Like all of you know about SLR, statutory liquidity ratio. This is being directed by RBI. That if you want to get banking license, this is what you have to maintain. वो क्यों करवाया जाता है? वो इसलिए करवाया जाता है when this things happens in the economy, at least banks can still remain stable. And there is a very famous ratio known as capital adequacy ratio, and that is what is being referred in this Basel III framework. There a specific amount of capital should be there with bank all the time. Like right now when the banks started failing in America, what happened? They were getting good returns on bonds. Like if I have 1 crore rupees and if I invest it for 10 years, India में 5-6% कम लगता है, but see it from USA point of view, वहाँ 5-6% बहुत बड़ा होता है. ठीक है, इंडिया में तो बोलोगे नहीं सर एफडी में 7 तो वहीं पे मिल रहा है, एसबीआई दे देता है. दिस इज नॉट हाउ इट वर्क्स इन यूएसए बिकॉज देयर द इन्फ्लेशन रेट इज ऑलवेज लेस ऑन द लेसर साइड. राइट नाउ इट्स वेरी हाई, बट दे वर गिविंग 5 to 6% ऑफ रिटर्न. सो मेनी बैंक थॉट जब इतना रिटर्न मिल रहा था अपना बॉन्ड खरीद लेते हैं. बट द प्रॉब्लम विद दिस बॉन्ड सेट दैट इफ यू कैन से break it prematurely, then you'll not get the interest on this. So that's why some of the banks went for aggressive investment in USA. They did not maintain capital adequacy ratio, and that's why they failed. That's why this Basel III framework remains very important from economics point of view, and इसको आप इसलिए याद रखेंगे. Even in your prelims in economics, this has come multiple times. That what is this Basel III framework all about? And please remember, this framework is done or created by 28 countries. 28 countries, they have come together. Like from India, RBI takes part in the negotiations. Okay, there is a Bank of Settlement, Bank of International Settlement, BIS, which looks after this Basel III framework. When we'll have class on economy, you will get further information about these things. But since these are the early classes, that's why I'm explaining everything where you may find a little bit of problem. So this is Basel III framework. Renewable energy and sustainability, all of us know about International Solar Alliance. It's been roughly 10 years since India has launched this, and what is happening, not happening. When we'll discuss about environment, when we'll talk about clean energy, we'll have a basic understanding. National Clean Energy Fund, etc. Look, India requires a lot of financing so that we can ensure that whatever targets we have set for ourselves, that by 2030 इतना clean energy से हम generation करेंगे, etc. So those things are not going to happen unless India gets technological expertise and second, financial support from the advanced economies. And that's why these are the things which are going to be helpful. Then collaboration and knowledge sharing, that is always going to be part of it, and global impact. So that's why if we see the role of India in G20, India can become part of it and ensure all these things. And this is why India's role becomes very, very vital. Okay, this I think all of you know. Now try to understand, this year there has been a declaration, Delhi Declaration. This is not given in your handout. इसको एक दो चार पॉइंट को हमें याद रखना पड़ेगा कि which specific sectors has been covered. Like suppose in prelims you get a question that which of the following areas were part of Delhi Declaration. अब आप बोलोगे क्रिप्टो पे तो कोई नहीं करेगा, मतलब ये सब तो 50-50 कर दिया हमने, बट क्रिप्टो इज बीइंग पार्ट ऑफ द डिक्लेरेशन कि क्या स्पेसिफिक उन्होंने किया है. एनीवे they have talked about digital public infrastructure. Minister from Germany came, he went to purchase some vegetables, saw India's UPI, he was in shock. India में UPI कैसे चल रहा है भाई? Every person is getting connected with the financial network. So digital public infrastructure is something which is very important, and here they have set up One Future Alliance. Okay, this PPT will be shared with you. You can keep it for your quick revision in prelims as well as मेंस. ठीक है, हैंडआउट हमने आपको दोनों अलग करके दिए हैं ताकि शुरुआत से ही आप दोनों को अलग सेट बना सको, जिंदगी आसान हो. तो बाद में क्या होगा कि प्रीलिम्स कौन सा करूं, मेंस कौन सा करूं, ये सब बड़ी दिक्कत आती है बाद में. एंड सम ऑफ द एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन गिवन हियर. सो डिजिटल इन पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. सेकंड, multilateral developmental bank reforms. What has happened in 1945? Two banks were created. One was World Bank, the second was IMF. Both of them, they are known as Bretton Woods institutions, and these two institutions, what they are doing, they always come up with certain kinds of guidelines which are always in favor of developed countries like USA. That's why reforms are now required in this. Okay, new objectives are required to be given to these banks. In fact, whenever we'll study about SCO, when we study about BRICS, so they are trying to create those arrangements which can challenge the hegemony of these two banks. Like all of us know about Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, New Development Bank. Why are these two institutions created? They are created so that they can challenge these institutions. Look, India's interest is going to be served by both. यहाँ भी reform हो जाए, and somehow those banks also start working at the international scale. So this was also part. Yes. Then climate. Look, climate change is real. All of us are aware of this. But the problem is advanced economy are not ready to give us any kind of finance. हमेशा बेवकूफ बना के चले जाते हैं. कभी बोलते क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल हो, कार्बन मार्केट बना देंगे, फिर कार्बन मार्केट is gone. Now they have accepted that yes, 5.8 to 5.9 trillion dollars would be required by 2030 to implement the NDCs. है ना? So NDCs, they are nothing but the target set at the individual country level. Like in India has also said कि इतना हम carbon cover बनाएंगे, etc. etc. All those things. Cryptos. Cryptos is a part of Delhi Declaration. Something very exciting when I saw कि हाँ चलो ये भी इसका part है. Why do we need to control cryptos? Try to understand two things. Number one, it can very easily affect the global financial framework. Okay, it is. Bitcoin का कभी प्राइस चला जाता है 20 लाख, कभी जा रहा है 10 लाख, कभी 50 लाख भी जा रहा है. So in Indian economy, it is switching very fast. Second, since it is not regulated by any central bank, all of us know that cryptocurrencies, they are decentralized form of currency. They are not centralized. That any specific bank is controlling crypto. Nobody is controlling. On the basis of mining, on the basis of demand, cryptos are going up and down. So, like suppose if you are very close to your retirement, somebody gives you an idea, crypto में लगा लो, पैसा पता नहीं कितना पहुंच जाएगा. So it's not a safe instrument right now. It can be used for hedging by those people who have multiple $1 million, but for people like us, investing in crypto can lead to a lot of hazards. And second, since they are unregulated, money from crypto can always be used for terror financing, money laundering. All those problems can come into the picture. That's why G20 countries, they came and thought, yes, it should be regulated. And there is a very famous report given by IMF, Financial Stability Report, and that is what is going to come up with a paper on this. AI, they also thought that how AI can be used eventually for the protection of human right, transparency, fairness, accountability, सब कुछ डाल दिया AI के ऊपर. Okay, how what can be done? Disasters, again, all of us know that whenever we talk about disasters, there are different types of strategies for disaster management. Some were reactives. Previously, India was like कि एक बार हो गया तो भागते हुए जा रहे हैं, क्या करना है. But right now we have a structure. Like 2005 was a very important year in terms of disaster management. We came up with Disaster Management Act. Later on, disaster management policy was also brought in. New institutions were created. Right now, we even have disaster response force is also there. We have a structure at national level, state level, even at the district level. So So that's why this disaster risk reduction remains very prominent for all of us. There are various strategies like Sendai framework is the one of the latest one. So that was also talked about. Look, because of climate change, disasters are increasing around the world. Okay, like if you see earthquake, it is increasing. Like Afghanistan has been struck in last 3-4 months twice. So since the disaster scale is increasing, we have to always come together. And do you expect that Afghanistan can do it on its own? It can never do its own. Lead is to be taken by the countries of G20. So G20, even though it's an exclusive group, but इसका impact हर country के ऊपर धीरे धीरे आने वाला है. So disaster risk reduction is going to be important. And it also talked about the challenge on Ukraine, even though it was not a harsh wording against Russia. All of you know that there is an international crime tribunal has come up with a notice against Putin. That's why Putin is not traveling. Okay, there can be a diplomatic problem. Like if he gets arrested by any of the country, तो क्या करेंगे फिर? So that's why it is in the interest of India to not come up with a very strong wording against Russia, but at the same time, Russia and the head of China, Xi Jinping, both of them were not part of G20 for this year. Okay, they did not come. Naturally, within G20 there are lots of fissures. It's not like G20 के अंदर सब कुछ बढ़िया बढ़िया चल रहा है, सब कुछ एक साथ में आ जाएगा. Whenever we see USA, Russia, China, India, these countries in one group, always going to be some problems. So yes, Ukraine, it was resolved. It said that yes, we should ensure that great geopolitical divide of our time can be prevented from crippling global cooperation. तो इंडिया वाले तो देखो वैसे ही न्यूट्रलिटी में सबसे टॉप पे है. इंडिया एंड स्विट्जरलैंड, इंडिया इन एशिया, स्विट्जरलैंड इन यूरोप, हम दोनों बिल्कुल एक जैसे हैं. बट है ना, दिस इज द रीजन. यस, इट वाज टॉक्ड अबाउट, बट harsh wording was not there, because we have to always go for multilateralism. Okay, ताली एक हाथ से कभी नहीं बजती. It's not like it was the fault of Russia, but if we accept the Western narrative, they will only single point out Russia. Ukraine was trying to become part of European Union, it was trying to become part of NATO, and that is a soft valley of Russia. That's why initially it took control of Crimea, and now it is even taking control of those areas of Ukraine where they have Russian speaking people, and that's why the whole problem is coming into the picture. Russia always thinks that it is getting encircled by the European nations, and that's why it happens eventually. This is the framework. Okay, plan for climate change was there, etc. Reforms were required, digital public infrastructure and crypto reforms, etc., etc. So when I was going through the document, because India has declared this with this one document. So when we will be making questions for you for current affairs, so we'll make sure कि हम ये documents को use करें. कई बार क्या होता है, न्यूज़पेपर्स में वो चीज़ ढंग से आती भी नहीं है. I was going through this document कि what has India said about different things, because this is India's declaration. Like suppose if you're writing any introduction in an essay on IR, can you write better introduction than what is being written by India in this? So we'll pick up something. We'll also share this in your portal. बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम इन्वेस्ट मत करना है इसके ऊपर, कुछ आपको आधे घंटे में कुछ काम का लगे, बिकॉज दिस इज फ्रॉम वेयर यूपीएससी कैन इजीली मेक क्वेश्चंस. बहुत सारे इसके अंदर कीवर्ड्स यूज किए गए हैं ऑफ इंटरनेशनल अफेयर्स एक्सेट्रा विच कैन बी रेलिवेंट फॉर द एग्जाम. बट आई वुड नॉट आस्क कि इसके बैठ के नोट्स बनाना शुरू कर दो, फिर हम क्लास में करेंगे क्या. ठीक है, बट हियर दे सेड वी द लीडर्स ऑफ G20 met in New Delhi on 9th and 10th of September under the theme Vasudev Kutumbakam. We met at a defining moment in history. The decision we make now will determine the future of our people and our planet. It is with this philosophy of living in harmony with our surrounding ecosystem that we come up to concrete action to address global challenges. Okay, so in introduction, conclusion, you can always pick up these one or two lines. कि इसको चाहो तो यहाँ से कर सकते हो. Okay, then they have talked about one or two things कि क्या क्या exactly resolve लेंगे. We commit to accelerate strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth. वही GS3 का सारा पेपर का आपका सिलेबस आना है इसमें घूम फिर के. Inclusive growth, sustainable development, 2030 agenda is there, low carbon emission systems are to be created, resilience is to be created. Okay, तो यही सारी चीज़ों की इन्होंने बात करी है. And then concern the war in Ukraine. Okay, They have also talked about reforms in the UNSC. Like there is a specific resolution number 75, which keeps on going on in the General Assembly. So that has been covered here. तो वो कुछ कुछ चीजें इन्होंने इसमें मेंशन की हुई है. ठीक है. So we'll be making questions from here. So through that you will get an understanding of the document. आप चाहे पढ़ाई करना चाहो ना कराओ, हम करा लेंगे. ठीक है, जिससे कि आपको फायदा हो. Because look, when somebody make questions for prelims, they don't target these kinds of documents, and these documents becomes very necessary for information. Because इतना newspaper मिल सकता है क्या आपको? 30 page of document only on G20, and as a student it's very difficult to remember everything. But we'll make sure कि जो जो अच्छी terms हैं वो at least आपकी cover हो जाए. ठीक है, because इंडिया ने काफी सारी चीजों पे बात करी कि for fighting corruption etc. what is going to happen. Okay. Similarly, FATF, all of you know about it. No, financial action tax and fast flow साथ में करेंगे. For achieving SDG, what will be taken? Okay, eliminating hunger and malnutrition, what steps will be taken for that, etc. etc. So even in the mains test series, we'll create questions from here because UPSC can easily ask. Okay, finance, health, collaboration. तो इसमें कुछ terms भी हैं, like globe is a term which has been used in this. And when I saw it yesterday, तो कुछ term जब आपकी directly आती है ना prelims में कि what is globe all about. So this globe is nothing but it's about how the taxation laws are being misused by multinational corporation. Some of you may even know about base erosion and profit shifting. So what happens? Big corporations like Google, Microsoft, they always change their centers to those countries where the taxation rate is 0 or it's very less, like 10%. अगर दुबई चले जाओगे तो इनकम टैक्स के बारे में सुना ही नहीं है दुबई के लोगों ने. But if you come to India, you have to pay 35 to 40%. Effective अगर रेट पे भी चले जाओगे तो भी मतलब 25% के आसपास तो देना ही पड़ेगा. So these kinds of certain terms are being here, which you will not find in the newspaper, which you will not find in the magazines, etc. So we'll make questions from here. Like suppose if you make 5 to 10 questions from here, it's not necessarily linked only to G20. It's linked to multiple topics of our syllabus. So वो हम इसके through कोशिश करेंगे आपको cover करने की. So that is what you have to remember. Okay. Plus, what is becoming important in the current affairs these times is that UPSC is also coming up with these viewpoints. Okay. So that's why we are also ensuring कि कुछ आपको quotes भी मिल जाए, which you can use directly in your mains examination. Like this year they have given a quote and then they have given a question. तो हो सकता है next year आपको ये quote सामने आ जाए. The G20 has contributed to making India world ready and the world India ready. Comment. Then you'll feel like क्या करें अब? And then you say कि honorable Union Minister of External Affairs क्या बोल के चले गए? Then Amitabh Kant, he is a very important personality. He says India told the world that instead of the war path, it should go on the growth path. Very good statement. Rather than going on the war path, it should go on the growth path. This G20 brought multilateralism to center stage. This can be written in the conclusions. Okay. Similarly, if we see PM Modi was clear that India's G20 should result in actionable outcome and that India should leave a lasting legacy. We are pushing for their implementation. It comes from PK Mishra. So even though here he mentions the name of PM, this can be avoided because UPSC भी उसको avoid करेगा एक level तक. But these two statements which are only about India, they can be very useful in your answer writing. तो इसको हमेशा याद रखेंगे. कोई एक तो कम से कम करना है. पूरा कोट याद ना हो तो India has told the world that instead of war path we should go on the growth path. वासुदेव कुटुंबकम. तो ये यूज करने के लिए, एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए बहुत जरूरी है. Okay. Now let us see quickly what are the criticism of G20. Everything is not fine in this group. Even though this is 85% of global GDP, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि सब कुछ बढ़िया बढ़िया चल रहा है लाइफ में. Let us see very quickly. Criticism. Number 1, again exclusivity and Western centric approach. Majority of the policies etc. like they talk about climate finance, but when it comes to implementation, they will not do anything. Okay, वो तो हमें पता ही है. They will always push reforms through WTO. And when it comes to WTO, what will happen in case of India? They will always say कि नहीं तुम लोगों को तो खाना कैसे खिला रहे हो अपने लोगों को, इतने बड़ा क्राइम कैसे कर दिया है ना. Public stock holding program will come into picture. So somehow they still push this. Then see the second criticism, inadequate global south inclusion. So even till today the inclusion is relatively on the lesser side. Neoliberal policy promotion, this is again important. So what happens is that they push those agenda ki completely open trade kar do, etc., which is not feasible for all the countries of the world. Like if you see some of the countries of Africa, if they will not put custom duties on many of the things which are being produced in developed nations, what will happen to these countries? Okay, so वो neoliberal agenda का बहुत बड़ा issue रहता है. Then corporate influence and lack of transparency, and this is again a big issue because majority of these countries which are in G20, they have big conglomerations, and they, whatever they do, they go to different parts of the world and they eventually exploit the lesser countries. So this is again a problem we have: decision making, alignment with corporate interests, as well as neglect of social and environmental concern. Ineffectiveness in addressing geopolitical tension, like you can see the Ukraine issue, even though both Russia, USA, India, सब इसका part है, but has it addressed this issue? It has not addressed. The issue between US and China over the trade wars, that has also not been addressed, even though this is the biggest global economic framework that we have right now, but उससे issue resolve हुआ? नहीं हुआ. It has not happened. Division in approaches to global issues, so this has also been seen, like you can see even with respect to the Palestine issue right now. Like USA is always in the support of Israel, okay, and if somebody says something in the favor of Palestine, even though nobody is accepting the philosophy of Hamas, but Palestine people, are they at fault? No, they are not at fault. We require that they should, their immediate priority, they should be addressed. Like there was a data which came 2 to 3 days ago that majority of the people who are dying, their kids in the case of Hamas. But even though majority country are G20, but since they are reducing their aim कि we will mostly focus on economic cooperation, तो वहाँ पे इसका impact नहीं आ पाता है. Plus one more biggest criticism of G20 is majority of the civil society and trade union, they are not made part of this. So that's why inclusivity challenges are always going to be part of G20. So इसको address कैसे करना है? What is the path ahead for all of us if we see G20 as a grouping? तो इसमें आपको ये सारे पॉइंट्स याद रखने हैं. नंबर 1, we should implement whatever policies which have been outlined, like all this. This is number 1. Okay, you can pick any example and write here. Like if we talk about climate, yes, so that can be one of the example for this. Second, continued collaboration. So this continued collaboration is going to be required, like suppose with respect to tax evasion beyond borders. So we require that kind of, you can say, effort from all countries. Innovation and adaptation, this is going to be required. Inclusivity, okay, like achieving gender equality, ensuring financial inclusion, as well as global leadership. G20 has not emerged as a group for global leadership. They're always coming up for one or the other interest. So that global leadership is something which is missing in the case of G20, and we should focus on that. Whenever you write path ahead in your mains answers, always pick something from the agenda of G20. Like from Delhi Declaration, we can always pick this. Like if you write a point about ensuring financial stability, तो उसमें आपको क्रिप्टो करेंसी वाला डिक्लेरेशन लिख देना है कि yes, we require a same kind of path for regulation of cryptocurrencies, or the role of AI in the development in the coming times, or ensuring disaster preparedness in the majority of the country of the world. So यहाँ पे हमें चाहिए. And immediate challenges even with respect to debt crisis are going on in 4 nations: Zambia, Ghana, Sri Lanka and Ethiopia. Remember these 4 countries because they have been part of this declaration कि how debt crisis. And if we see Sri Lanka का debt crisis किससे linked है? China, directly with China. UPSC always asks this question. If they will give the name of 3-4 countries, what is common among these 4? वहाँ बैठ के नहीं घूम पाओगे कि हाँ आगे को तो याद भी नहीं जाम्बिया किधर पड़ता है भाई, ठीक है, तो वो याद रखना पड़ेगा. Yes, these 4 countries were there from prelims point of view. Yes, they were part of debt crisis. So management of debt crisis is very important. Right now agreements are also being brought in between Sri Lanka and IMF. So debt crisis कैसे करना है ये बहुत important है. So if we see on G20 what kind of questions can come in the mains. So one is the role of India, like they have asked in SCO, what is the role of India. Second, they can ask about what are the various problems that we see in G20 as a unit. तो हमने उसको पूरा criticism देख लिया, क्या क्या problems है इसके अंदर. What should be the way ahead for G20 for ensuring global leadership, तो हमने लास्ट में उसमें साथ में आपको ये सारे पॉइंट्स उसमें एड्रेस करने हैं, because largely this is a economic group, this is not a geopolitical group. तो इकोनॉमिक ग्रुप में मैक्सिमम फोकस इन्हीं चीज़ों पर रहेगा, डेवलपमेंट, डिजास्टर प्रिपेयर्डनेस, क्लाइमेट चेंज, एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन, ऑल ऑफ दिस। ओके, दिस इज व्हाट इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। तो इस पे 2-3 तरीके से क्वेश्चन आ सकता है एंड यू शुड बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दिस। I hope the topic of G20 was clear to all of you. Lots of things are important from prelims point of view, some are important from mains point of view. ये सब देखो बहुत याद रखना पड़ेगा। पता क्या होता है, हम पढ़ तो लेते हैं G20 न्यूज़पेपर्स में, पर लास्ट में जब आंसर लिखने जाते हैं तो ये सब छोड़ छाड़ के इधर उधर की कहानियां शुरू कर देते हैं, और वो कहानियों पे मार्क्स नहीं मिलने वाले। And we have to use these keywords. Can you tell me the 5 keywords which are very important for G20 as a whole? Like Delhi Declaration becomes one of the keywords, which talks about the recent happening of G20. Global economic architecture, that is what this group is all about. That becomes a second important keywords. So keywords are going to be there. You have to just go through this. Like if we see this one quote, okay, that from the war path we are going towards growth path. This becomes a good quotation to be used in the exam. Or even if we see the viewpoint of S. Jaishankar, that G20 has contributed to making India world ready and the world India ready. So in a way, it is about the ensuring that India should get recognized. Okay, and to do ये सब आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा, because when you write answers, the question may be of 10 marks or it could be of 15 marks. 2 पेज लिख सकते हो या 3 पेज लिखना पड़ेगा, हमें ये सारी चीजें याद रखनी पड़ेंगी. We had initially seen certain facts also, तो वो आप याद रख लेना, 85%, 75% and 66% or 2/3 of the global population. What is the meaning of troika, etc. No permanent secretariat. अगर इसके बारे में 1-2 एक्स्ट्रा इन्फॉर्मेशन आपने लिखना हो मेंस एग्जामिनेशन में, like this can also be one of the limitation that we can see with respect to this grouping. वो आप ध्यान रख सकते हो. तो ये बस आपको ध्यान रखना है. ये ग्राफ अगर आपको बनाना है तो इसको आराम से आप एक्स्ट्रा मार्क्स फेच कर सकते हो. लाइक इफ ए क्वेश्चन कम्स विद रिस्पेक्ट टू G7 वर्सेस G20, कभी आ जाए ऐसा क्वेश्चन, या प्रीलिम्स में चलो बनाने का कोई लॉजिक नहीं है, बट मेंस में आप आराम से ग्राफ को बना सकते हो. ट्रॉयका दिखाना, एक छोटा सा दिखा के ये बना सकते हो. और इसमें आप, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि यू कैन ऑलवेज शो कि नाउ ब्रिक्स इज बिकमिंग मोर इम्पोर्टेंट, ऐसा करके ब्रिक्स के ऊपर भी दिखा सकते हो कि दीज आर द कंट्रीज आर पार्ट ऑफ ब्रिक्स, विच विल add multi dimensions to your answer. This is how we have to prepare every topic from mains point of view. Prelims के लिए अगर आप देखोगे of any organization, like if we see G20, तो हमें कुछ कुछ स्पेसिफिक एरियाज हमेशा याद रखने हैं फॉर प्रीलिम्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. इसके मेंबरशिप याद रखना पड़ेगा, ठीक है, दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज क्वेश्चन हैज कम ऑन दैट. सेकंड, व्हाट आर इज रीसेंट डिक्लेरेशन, that is also you have to remember for G20. Third, you have to also remember about certain specific things. Does it have a secretariat? Okay, all those things are very important from prelims point of view. तो G20 में ये चीज़ ध्यान रखना, क्या क्या इसका बेसिक फंक्शन है, what is the objective of this grouping, that again becomes very important. And they can always ask 1 or 2 question about its history, कि how did G20 came into picture. तो कोई भी एक अलग सा इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस दिखा देंगे, दैट इट वाज क्रिएटेड इन द वेक ऑफ द डिसोल्यूशन ऑफ USSR, वो सेंस नहीं बनेगी उस चीज़ की. लेकिन आपको पेपर में UPSC ऐसे लिखता है कि लगता हाँ ये तो ठीक लग रहा है, वो ठीक होता नहीं है फिर फाइनली. दिस इज द फर्स्ट टॉपिक विच यू रिक्वायर टू कवर टुडे. दिस हैज टेकन लिटिल बिट ऑफ मोर टाइम बिकॉज ऑल ऑफ अस आर गेटिंग अकस्टम्ड. धीरे धीरे करके इसको इम्प्रूव कर लेंगे. एक चीज़ जो आपको ध्यान रखनी है फ्रॉम एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, न्यूज़पेपर में जो जो काम के आर्टिकल होंगे, वी आर गोइंग टू शेयर दिस PDF ऑन वीकली बेसिस, कि आप सैटरडे या संडे को बैठो थोड़ा सा उसको पढ़ लो जो काम का लग रहा है. बिकॉज डेली बेसिस पे अगर हम उतना टाइम देंगे इसमें 2 hours, 1.5 hours और इवन 1 hour विदाउट रिटेंशन, बिगेस्ट इशू इज रिटेंशन. यू आर स्टडिंग, यू डोंट नो व्हाट टू रिटेन फॉर प्रीलिम्स, यू डोंट नो व्हाट टू रिटेन फॉर मेंस. नोट्स बनाने बैठ गए तो वो एक महाभारत शुरू हो जाती है अगले वाली. तो इन सब चीज़ों से बचने के लिए अच्छा ये है, नोट्स आप यहीं पे रखो. whenever I say specific things in the class कि प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस, उसके ऊपर बहुत फोकस करना. बिकॉज देखो मेरा ये एक्सपीरियंस है, प्रीलिम्स में बार बार मार्क्स आने का रीज़न है कुछ, रीज़न यही है, मुझे पता है किसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन किस तरीके से फ्रेम होता है, कहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम आने वाली है। अगर मैं आज भी एक क्वेश्चन बना के टेस्ट सीरीज में डाल दूंगी ट्रॉय का, तो आधे लोग तो वैसे ही ये का क्वेश्चन दे दिया, और ये आया होगा न्यूज़पेपर्स में, ऐसा नहीं कि दिस हैज नॉट कम। So we have to be very specific with respect to prelims. With respect to mains, we have to analyze the organization. That is more important, because in prelims I don't think they will ask about analysis of G20. That is more a part of mains examination. And please remember one more thing, even though it's a far-fetched thing, a long-term thing, in interview also they ask a lot of questions from IR. So good understanding of IR is going to be very healthy. अगर आप में से किसी को IFS भी फर्स्ट भरना, अगर IFS आपने फर्स्ट डाल दिया, ठीक है, द बोर्ड विल आस्क एटलीस्ट 7 to 10 क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम IR डायरेक्टली. इट इज प्रिज्यूम्ड दैट इफ यू वांट टू ज्वाइन IFS सर्विसेज यू शुड हैव गुड अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. सबसे पहले वासुदेव कुटुंबकम पे ही आएगा. Okay, what is this Vasudev Kutumbakam? Which are the organizations, G20, recent, etc. तो ये चीज आप इसलिए भी थोड़ा इंटरेस्ट IR में एक्स्ट्रा ले सकते हो, इफ सम ऑफ यू विश टू कम गो विद इंडियन फॉरेन सर्विस. देर तो कम से कम 8-10 क्वेश्चन आप सोच लीजिए, आना ही आना है. गुड अंडरस्टैंडिंग इज गोइंग टू बी रिक्वायर्ड. कुछ बार तो इतने अजीब से क्वेश्चन पूछ लेते हैं, लाइक आई वाज आस्क्ड अबाउट विच ड्रोन हैज बीन यूज्ड बाय USA इन अफगानिस्तान. ठीक है, कौन सा यूज किया गया है. तो वो ऐसे ऐसे क्वेश्चन भी कभी कभार आ जाते हैं इंटरव्यू में. इवन दो इंटरव्यू इज नॉट लाइक क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग कि नहीं आया तो नहीं चलो बाहर निकल जाओ. ऐसा नहीं है. दे विल स्विच टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन समहाउ, बट इफ यू नो इट अबाउट इट तो थोड़ा ज्यादा अच्छा आपका पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू बन जाता है. पता होना चाहिए, हाँ चलो ठीक है प्रीडेटर ड्रोन यूज कर रहे हैं, तो मुझे पता था, बोल दिया. थोड़ा इन्फॉर्मेशन IR में इंटरेस्ट ले सकते हो, बट नेचुरली टाइम को बैलेंस करके. ये नहीं कि ये मेरे बता सर मैं को IFS ही जाना था, मेरा पेपर चेंज करा दो, मैं सिर्फ IR में, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. ओनली 50 मार्क्स इन मेंस, इन प्रीलिम्स. It purely depends upon what UPSC wants. Like last year, there were multiple questions. When we'll talk about the agenda for prelims, prelims में हमारा बहुत focus होगा अफ्रीका पे, because if they're asking 2-3 questions from Africa, so our preparation should also replicate it. Similarly, like when we were discussing about in G20 itself, a declaration has happened on 4 countries which are undergoing debt crisis. अगर मुझे इजी क्वेश्चन बनाना था, आई विल राइट द नेम ऑफ द कंट्रीज एंड आई लास्ट विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग थिंग इज कॉमन अमंग दीज 4. तो 4 मैंने पॉइंट बना दिया. दे आर गोइंग थ्रू फेमाइन, दे आर गोइंग थ्रू डेट क्राइसिस, देयर हैज बीन अ राइज ऑफ टेररिस्ट एक्टिविटीज. वो सब तो मैं बना दूंगा. अगर मेरे को डिफिकल्ट करना है तो आई विल से कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग कंट्रीज वर मेंशन्ड इन द डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ G20 1 2 3 फॉर 1 and 2 2 and 3. कर लो, कहानी खत्म हो गया. श्रीलंका याद रहेगा 100%, और वही फिर बाद में दिक्कत क्रिएट होगी आप लोगों के लिए. सो विच फैक्ट्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट, यू हैव टू जीरो डाउन इट फॉर योरसेल्फ. और यही तरीका है, देखो इस एग्जाम में अच्छे मार्क्स लेके आने का इन प्रीलिम्स एंड मेंस. एंटिसिपेशन. इफ समबडी विल आस्क मी ओनली वन क्वालिटी विच इज गोइंग टू मैटर इन द एग्जाम, इट इज एंटिसिपेशन, कि कैसा क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. एंड दिस इज प्योरली एंटिसिपेशन बेस्ड. किसी को नहीं पता, मेरे दिमाग में 50 चीजें चलती है कि अच्छा ऐसे आ सकता है, हर बार आएगा नहीं वैसा. बट since whenever I study, this is my viewpoint. अगर ये चीज रहती है तो कहीं ना कहीं स्ट्राइक करेगा. Like last year I told my student कि भाई देखो यूक्रेन की ज्योग्राफी पे क्वेश्चन आने के चांसेस हैं, बिकॉज बाकी सब पॉलिटी तो पढ़ के बैठेंगे, ज्योग्राफी से क्वेश्चन आएगा, एंड इट हैपेंस. सो दैट इज व्हाट इज वी गोइंग टू कवर इन दिस क्लासेस. ठीक है. सेकंड, चलिए अब जल्दी से नेक्स्ट टॉपिक पे आते हैं. नेक्स्ट टॉपिक इज रिलेटिवली स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड. Some topics they do take time because they are important from exam point of view, they're important even from prelims point of view, but कुछ topics ऐसे हैं कि बस ठीक है, we just require a little bit of understanding. So when this G20 summit was going on, one more announcement was done. This announcement was directly linked and it is known as India Middle East Europe corridor. Okay, so what they're trying to do, kindly see it on the board. So the western part of India, it is being connected through the Middle East, okay, all the way up to Europe. This is the corridor. Right now we do not know what is going to be the path exactly, ki which ports are going to be part of this specific corridor. The next problem, it goes through which country? Israel. So हंसते हंसते हमने declare किया, within next 20 days the geopolitical situation changed. So right now, if suppose in prelims it comes that India Middle East Europe economic corridor is being affected by the crisis in Israel and Palestine. So it is a direct yes. Okay. Two countries which are unhappy because of this specifically. One is Egypt, because all of us know Egypt has a monopoly over trade. You know, it lessens your overall time if you want to trade with Europe. So Egypt is not happy. Okay. Similarly, Turkey is also not happy. Even I am part of Eurasia. हमारा तो पूरा इस्तांबुल दोनों सिटी में आता भी है, हमें क्यों छोड़ दिया बीच में? So it is connecting directly from here, UAE, Saudi Arabia, all the way up to Israel, and then it goes up to Greece. Greece is the country which is going to be bordered in Europe. So from prelims point of view, you have to remember this. The final, which are going to be the ports, अभी तक finalization नहीं हुआ है. But naturally, the ports which are in news as a result of this. अब आप सोचोगे कि क्वेश्चन स्टार्ट यहाँ पे हुआ था, आग इंडिया के पोर्ट्स पे चला गया इन इंडियन इकोनॉमी. सो मुंद्रा इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पोर्ट, ओके, रिलेटेड विद अदानी जी, है ना. तो मुंद्रा इज अ वेरी फेमस पोर्ट. देन Jawaharlal Nehru port that we have in Navi Mumbai, that is also being considered. In fact, there is a famous tidal port of India, Kandla, that is also being considered, that we can have the corridor from there. Anyway, we'll understand why India wants such a corridor, what are the benefits that we can reap as a result of this. Last year you must have seen in prelims, UPSC asked about trilateral highway. Those are the concept which were connecting India with the Southeast Asia. So this time around there can be a question on those trade corridors which is going to link India with the West. This is the theme. तो ये चीजें दिमाग में हमेशा देखो बैठानी पड़ेंगी कि जब हम पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं तो पहले बताना पड़ता है खुद को, हाँ ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, नहीं तो हमारे दिमाग कहते हैं जस्ट अनदर टॉपिक, जैसे पिछला याद किया था वैसे ये भी याद कर लूंगा जो एग्जाम तक नहीं रहेगा मेरे पास. सो आई ऑलवेज क्रिएट दिस काइंड ऑफ हाइप इन माई माइंड दैट दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. तो वो कंसंट्रेशन अपने आप आ जाती है. This can come. Kindly see in your handout. I hope this is clear to all of you, even though largely only a declaration has been done. No formal agreement has been signed so far on this topic. But basic level things are clear. It is going to link India with West Asia. And West Asia is going to be linked with eastern part of Europe. And the country of origination here would be Greece. It bypasses Egypt as well as Turkey. So when we will talk about the limitations of this, both these countries are against it. कि हमें इतना धोखा दे दिया तुम लोगों ने. Anyway, let us see very quickly what is this all about. So kindly see the key signatories. Number one, what are the key signatories for this project? Only a memorandum of understanding has been signed so far. Okay, कोई significant pact नहीं signed हुआ है which is going to materialize into this. So here we have Saudi Arabia. So naturally we can see Saudi Arabia is an important part of it. Then second you can see UAE. These are the two countries that we see from West Asia. Okay. Then we have European Union, naturally, India, France, Germany, Italy as well as US. US is important because UPSC में ऐसा ही होता है, आपको लगेगा कि तो US कहीं भी नहीं आ रहा है, इंडिया, मिडल ईस्ट, यूरोप कॉरिडोर में कहाँ से आया? तो US is also a part of it. So these are the initial signatories. Okay, I'll show you this question one more time. When last year they asked about that the USA-Europe strategic partnership is good for India. It is good for India. What is your opinion about it? Can we use this as one single point? Yes, because both of them they are coming together, and this is going to have significant impact on India's trade, and GDP is also going to rise as a result of this. Right now, all of us know India is good in services, but in goods we are always struggling. We have a trade deficit also when it comes to goods. So if this strategic partnership between European Union and USA can help India, okay, तो हमारे लिए तो win-win situation बन जाती है. In this specific case, I'm not talking in all the cases. This is one example of that. So sometimes direct questions are not going to come. Indirect questions can come directly. जहाँ आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा कि हाँ ठीक है, if this is the example which we can use in this topic. So I encourage all of you to please see previous year questions of IR from 2013 till now. Just see those questions. If you see the trend of last 2-3 years, they have asked SEO twice. दो बार पूछ लिया SEO उन्होंने. Organizations के पीछे पड़ गए हैं. Out of 4, at least 2 questions are coming from organizations. Indian diaspora has become a very important topic. Okay, and new areas like India, Israel, वहाँ से question आया है. Anyway, let us see very quickly Corridor overview. It will be a transnational rail and shipping route. This is very important. Transnational and shipping route spread across how many continents? Two continents. One is Europe, the second is Asia, which the US says is expected to stimulate economic development through improved connectivity and economic integration. Whenever you write answers in your mains, like you can use US, you can say New York. This is often used while writing answers of IR. Like when you write about India's interest, you can say New Delhi's interest. So capital को हमेशा use कर लेते हैं, ठीक है, just to show कि भाई repetition ना हो. आप articles भी पढ़ेंगे even in your newspaper. This is how it is written, that this bodes well for New Delhi if we can ensure this kind of approach. So kindly see, one biggest issue with the whole of the world is nobody trusts China. सिर्फ इंडिया और चाइना के बीच में ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट नहीं है. China's trust deficit with every country, and they have this one very important initiative known as Belt and Road Initiative. This again connects Asia with Europe, both through land route as well as maritime route. और Silk Route उसी का famous terminology use करते हैं. It was inaugurated in 2013. आज आर्टिकल अगर आप पढ़ोगे इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में तो उस पर एक आर्टिकल आया 10 years ऑफ बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव. 10 years हुए हैं उसका फिनिश हुए. तो दिस प्रोजेक्ट हैज बीन कंसिडर्ड विच कैन काउंटर द चाइनीज, because the problem with Chinese is Chinese always go to different parts of the world, go with their debt diplomacy, and since India and China are a bit of in a competing space, so India के लिए हमेशा we should have a second option. And same with the USA. USA is the largest economy. It doesn't want China to overtake it. So naturally, तो India के साथ अभी तो आएंगे ही. Until India becomes big, when then some alliance will be created with Pakistan. So anyway, strategic interest. So they are talking about two separate corridors. Kindly see in your handouts. The East Corridor connecting India to Arabian Gulf, and then the Northern Corridor connecting Arabian Gulf to Europe. This is how it's going to be. Okay. The ports in consideration in India, they're talking about Mundra, like I have told you. Kandla is another port, and Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust in Navi Mumbai. These are the ports they are considering. Ports in Middle East, at least 5 have been shortlisted, like Fujairah, Jebel Ali, Abu Dhabi in UAE, and Dammam and Ras Al Khair ports in Saudi Arabia. So we have two countries, UAE and Saudi Arabia, like we have already seen यहाँ पे. ठीक है. Then try to understand one more related topic. It is known as PGII. Kindly see it, PGII. This was the initial kind of setup which was established against the Belt and Road Initiative. It is known as Partnership for Global Infrastructure Investment. So in 2022, during the G7 summit in Germany, this was officially launched as a joint initiative to help fund infrastructure projects through public as well as private initiative. In prelims, UPSC क्या करता है सर, बोलेगा only through public investments. तो only जहाँ पे आ जाता है फिर आपको पता आत्मा के साथ क्या होता है. तो ये ध्यान रखना कि this is for public as well as private. The infrastructure plan was first announced in June 21 during the summit in UK. The US president has called it Build Back Better World Framework. Build Back Better World, this is a framework mostly used for disaster management. Build Back Better World उसके लिए use होता है. But here they are using it. Why Better World? Because China is creating that diplomacy. And when we talk about that diplomacy, Sri Lanka is a prime example of the same. So that's why you have to remember PGII. Like suppose if I give you a question in prelims, which of the following initiative can act against Belt and Road Initiative of China? So उसमें PGII आ जाएगा, because this is not only going for one initiative, it is going for multiple initiatives throughout the world. Then we can also talk about India, Middle East, Europe corridor. ऐसे बहुत सारे आपके words आ सकते हैं उसके अंदर, तो ध्यान रखना है हमें. Like suppose when we talk about India-China relationship, how can we counter China if we require points? So one point would be this one. Okay. Similarly, India can also participate in PGII initiative, because India is always at the crunch of sources of fund. दिक्कत तो रहता है ना, India is a growing economy. We require lots of fund for our different developmental priorities. That's why we always say FDI जितना ज़्यादा उतना फायदा हो. See the benefits. What are the benefits that we can see? So if you wish to remember only one point from the benefits, तो वो आपको ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा that what it does, it reduces the trade time between Europe and India by 40%. Okay, 40% will be reduction of the transportation time. Number one, first point, just like we had remember for your G20, 40% reduction of trade time. That is number one point. Second, 30% reduction, okay, of the energy, of the, you can say energy or the logistic cost that we see in this case. So 40% time का फायदा होगा, 30% cost का फायदा होगा with respect to trade. This is an estimation which has come for IMEC. It will naturally enhance connectivity of India with the Middle East. That is a very basic level in point which all of us can generate. हमेशा ध्यान रखना, whenever an economic question comes, तो तीन चार चीजें ही मैटर करती हैं. First, enhance connectivity, generic point. Second, it will increase the overall trade in the region. This is the region which is always in disarray, always having different kind of, you can say, equations, where Saudi Arabia versus Israel versus Iran. These are the three poles in West Asia. Three poles. Why three poles? Because none of them are having good relations against each other. ऐसा नहीं कि इजराइल का अच्छा रिलेशन होगा तो सऊदी अरेबिया से, no. These three are three different poles. And right now, all of us know Abraham Accords were signed in 2020. And when there was talks of Israel and Saudi Arabia are going to sign certain kind of pact, Hamas struck Israel and it affected the relationship with Saudi Arabia. So it is not in the interest of the region, but that was they think that there should be any kind of peaceful agreement. But the biggest weapon which you can use to ensure peace in the long run, it is economic interdependence. इसको हमेशा ध्यान रखना. जिस दिन सारे लोग साथ में प्रॉफिट कमाने लग गए, ठीक है, like India and Pakistan, if we can create economic interdependence, we require projects like तापी. अब इसमें हमने पाकिस्तान को बाईपास किया ना, because what happens whenever we have to go, हमारे साथ क्या खड़ा रहता है? पाकिस्तान. So Pakistan has been bypassed because अगर हम पाकिस्तान के साथ बात भी करेंगे, they will reverse after every few days. That is the nature of their politics. One will come from civilian side, next the army will say something else. Then by that time prime minister will get the urgency कि army क्या बोल रही है, वो change होता रह चला जाता बार बार. Okay, so that's why we have tried to bypass that also, and that we can directly reach the Europe. And this is why this is becoming important for us. So all these points you can remember. It can be a corridor for clean energy, boost in trade, enhance connectivity, cooperation between nations. So these are the benefits which we can see. If we see the geopolitical gains for every country independently, so kindly see for India, it will lessen our dependence upon traditional trade partners. That is number one. Second, for Middle East, right now they're relying only on Western partnership, and within Western, maximum dominance is coming from USA. So that can be reduced. The more balanced portfolio of alliances can be created for them. Third, you can see for Europe, so they can counterbalance China's Belt and Road Initiative in their region. And if we see from US point of view, since China is increasing its footprint in this whole area, so that's why it can give more footing again back to USA. That's why USA wants to become part of it. USA is a global power. It's not like India कि हमेशा कोशिश करेगा कि अपने रीजन में अलायंस बना के बैठेगा. USA will go everywhere. It will part of 5 eyes, 4 eyes, जितनी भी eyes होंगी सब में USA will always be a part of it, because its interest is getting affected in every region of the world. And finally, India. Why is India in opposition to the Belt and Road Initiative? क्या reason है इसका? ठीक है? This is the trajectory. Yes, because the Belt and Road Initiative, if we see the point of view of India, it goes through Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and India says without consultation with us, you cannot affect our territorial integrity as well as sovereignty. This is the main reason. UPSC has even asked a question in internal security, कि what is the impact of China-Pakistan economic corridor on India's security. That's why लगेगा IR का टॉपिक है. क्वेश्चन कहाँ आता है? सिक्योरिटी में. और कई बार सिक्योरिटी के टाइप का क्वेश्चन होगा, क्वेश्चन कहाँ जाएगा? IR में. Like suppose if we want a question comes on tackling terrorism, so even though it's a security kind of topic, but IR में तो आएगा ही ना. Cooperation तो हमें चाहिए ही चाहिए. So kindly see on next page, what is the opposition of India to BRI. So this is what you have to remember. See the statement of S. Jaishankar. So he says any serious connectivity initiative must be transparent. Transparency is something which is not synonymous with China. China means opaqueness, and conform to the most basic principle of respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. That's why we are against the concept of Belt and Road Initiative. Ethical responsibility also, we can shift towards energy, technology, etc., all those things, because this Middle East, majority of the Middle East is dependent upon oil, and their economy require transition to the next phase, and that next phase of transition will only come when they have better connectivity. So that is something which we can cover. And establishment of India as a leader in this area. India is having good relation with everyone. इंडिया का एक सबसे बड़ा फायदा है good relation with Israel, Saudi Arabia as well as Iran. Somehow we are able to balance, and this is known as multi-pronged diplomacy. Okay, diplomacy also has different kinds of meaning. So multi-pronged diplomacy is required in case of India because India's interests are in all these countries. See the challenges. The biggest challenge, जब भी कोई नया आइडिया आता है which requires money, जैसे हम भी सोचते हैं चलो एक बार वर्ल्ड टूर करके आते हैं, तो सबसे पहला चीज क्या आएगा? फंड्स. So here estimate is coming from different parts of the world. Somebody is saying it will cost $20 billion, but majority of the estimate, they are between $3 billion to $8 billion, and that too in individual country, not everywhere. Okay, so this is अब तो सबसे बड़ा issue भी funds है, because like if you'll ask for this much fund from India, Israel, तो कहाँ तक materialize करेगा? Nobody knows. Second comes Chinese presence. So some of the areas which are a part of this, okay, like if we talk about this Piraeus, this specific port which is mentioned in Greece, this is under the control of one China Ocean Shipping Company. This port has been controlled by China, which we are talking about. Okay, so वो वहाँ पे आता है. Then second, many Chinese companies, they are also coming up with lucrative packages for UAE कि भाई हम ये इन्वेस्टमेंट कर देंगे, तो दैट कुड आल्सो काउंटर दिस स्पेसिफिक declaration. Alienation of Egypt, loss of revenue will happen to Egypt. Naturally it will happen because right now they have monopoly over Suez Canal, and that is going to affect them. And that's why even though they visited during G20, but they did not become part of this agenda. Executional constraint can be seen to exit Saudi Arabia and reach Jordan. Reliance on the rail network is crucial, and that's a kind of missing link that we have here. You can even write down criticism is even coming from Turkey, because Turkey has also been bypassed in this. Okay, so Turkey has also been bypassed in this. When we prepare for mains, there can be multiple ways in which question can come. Like if they say it can be a game changer for the region. So when we say game changer, what are the points which can come to your minds? Remember, number one, again the same keyword, economic interdependence. So this can reduce conflict in the area if economic interdependence can be ensured. Okay, so India as a market will also get a lot of benefits from this. Second, Israel, which has strategic position in this area, can further improve its relation with the rest, and by peace and prosperity, not with guns, by showing them that I have more power than all of you. Third, European engagement. So yes, it can become a major trade partner for India and Middle East if it can start this corridor. And then synergy interlinkages. So for this region, this is how it can be a game changer. And finally, if we see the path ahead, what should be done in the long run so that this can become a success? There are lots of challenges which are in front of this. So number one, which you can remember the viewpoint of Parag Khanna. So Parag Khanna says that economic corridor are not just logistic pathway for the transit of goods. They are the nervous system of global economy. Such quotes can be used whenever a question, चाहे वो वेस्ट में आए, चाहे ईस्ट में आए, कॉरिडोर कहीं भी हो, इकोनॉमिक प्रोजेक्ट हो, ये लिख देना साथ में. And a cornerstone of the game of geopolitics. These corridors influence the balance of power, serve as conduit for soft and hard influence, and enable nations to secure essential supply lines. So that's why economic corridors are something which are very important. So what should be done for this project to go forward? So number one, we have to remember, we have to also ensure diplomatic engagement. Okay. Second, we should sign certain comprehensive agreements. So far only a declaration has been done. Memorandum of understanding has been signed कि हाँ हम समझते हैं ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है. But this is not always going to translate. Like in 2017, UPSC asked this question in GS paper 3, not in security, it asked in economics. That India signs a lot of MOUs, but they do not translate into FDI. What are the factors responsible for the same, and suggest measures for addressing it? So वहाँ पर भी हम ऐसे चीज़ों को साइन कर लिख सकते हैं एज एन एग्जाम्पल क्या इंटरनेशनल लेवल भी साइन लॉट्स ऑफ एमओयूज। इंडिया में सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है, दैट इफ यू कम फ्रॉम आउटसाइड बिजनेस एनवायरमेंट, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस, दैट इज व्हाट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, वो इंडिया में कम रहती है। देन वी द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ लेबर लॉस कम्स इनटू द पिक्चर। थर्ड, डिलेज इन एग्जीक्यूशन ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट। इंडिया की फॉरेन पॉलिसी का सबसे बड़ा नेगेटिव एक याद कर लेना, चाहे वो इंटरव्यू में पूछे, चाहे वो आपके एग्जाम में कभी आ जाए, सबसे बड़ा इश्यू क्या होता है, वी आर नॉट एबल टू एग्जीक्यूट प्रोजेक्ट्स ऑन टाइम। बिगेस्ट इश्यू विद इंडियाज फॉरेन पॉलिसी। दिस इज द इश्यू व्हाई नेपाल इज अगेंस्ट इंडिया, व्हाई भूटान गोस, कि कभी ना कभी आया था ना कि फ्रस्ट्रेशन, विल ऑलवेज से कि हाँ विल क्रिएट दिस एंड दैट, बट विल ऑलवेज गो इनटू डिलेस, एंड दैट इज अ हैबिट even our companies also have that. Not only we have that character, our companies also have that problem, that we are not able to match our vision when it comes to execution of projects. So this is again one more project which हम खुश तो होते हैं हाँ कर देंगे, but जब वहाँ पहुँचना होता है तो नहीं कर पाते हैं। That is, वही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि दिस इज नॉट ओनली इन इंटरनेशनल प्रोजेक्ट, दिस इज अ पार्ट इन इंडिया ऑल्सो। अगर आप कोई भी एक प्रोजेक्ट उठा के देखोगे वो 2 साल का होता है, बट वो 5 साल 10 साल हो चुके होते हैं, कई केसेस में तो अबैंडन भी हो जाता है। तो दैट इज अ बिगेस्ट इश्यू विद इंडियाज। अब चाइना को बोलो, चाइना एक दिन में रोड बना देगा, कितनी लंबी बनानी है बता दो बस हमें, सुबह से लेके शाम तक। वो सुबह बॉम्ब भी कर देंगे ताकि लोग खाली कर दे, और शाम को तक बना भी देंगे और अगले दिन आसपास का पूरा खत्म कर देंगे ताकि लगे कि हाँ ये हाईवे था। So this is the issue with India versus China, and it affects our international relation. Even though we are a soft power, but when it comes to hard power, we are not able to do so. Execution of projects require funding. It also require execution capacity, management of the projects. तो वो इंडिया के केस में बहुत दिक्कतमंद रहता है। तो ये आप हमेशा एक पॉइंट रहते हैं, irrespective of the project, irrespective of anything, this is always going to be a problem. Then IMEC's transformative potential, this is what we have to understand कि वो सही में वासुदेव कुटुंबकम in true sense create कर सकता है, but for doing so we have to ensure that we engage with all these powers, the support of European Union, again European Union, USA, this is going to become important, and for its success again depends upon G20, because all these countries which have participated here, okay, through which it's going to go, वो कहीं ना कहीं G20 से भी अच्छा खासा इंटरलिंकेजेस हैं। लाइक यूएई इज अ मेजर ट्रेड पार्टनर फॉर इंडिया, ऑल ऑफ अस नो दैट। तो वो सब हमें ध्यान रखना है, बट दिस इज अ एक्सटेंडेड टॉपिक ऑफ G20 ओनली। इन प्रीलिम्स देयर कैन बी अ क्वेश्चन, इन मेंस देयर कैन बी डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन। लाइक आई हैव जस्ट टोल्ड यू कि जब भी कोई क्वेश्चन आता है उसमें डायमेंशन जरूर, अपने पॉइंट जरूर ध्यान रखना है, दैट ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग इज गोइंग टू प्ले अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल। Like if we try to address this one question, stronger US-Europe strategic partnership works well for India. So here we can use it as an example. तो examples याद रखने पड़ेंगे। देखो इस चीज का ध्यान रखना, when we will discuss lots of topics, sometimes they will be discussed only from prelims point of view also, but even prelims point of view becomes very important in answer writing, because उससे क्या फायदा होता है, finally examples मिल जाते हैं हमें। Even when I used to read newspaper, I used to chalk out examples, कि example है तो मैं लिख लूंगा। ये तो हम हर किसी को पता है यार, अगर दो जगह को अगर कनेक्ट करोगे तो कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ जाएगी, ट्रेड इंक्रीज हो जाएगी, सबको पता है। इसमें कुछ डिफिकल्ट चीज है समझने में, इसमें कुछ भी डिफिकल्ट नहीं है, बट कितना इम्पैक्ट होगा तो आपको पता होना चाहिए। ठीक है, IMEC आएगा, 40% टाइम रिड्यूस होएगा, 30% आपकी लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट डिक्रीज होगी, वो फैक्ट आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा। ठीक है, देन अगला फैक्ट आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा कि हाँ ठीक है, दिस इज ऑल्सो गोइंग टू बी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप बिटवीन यूरोपियन यूनियन एंड USA, and they can get connected with India, so it can improve our relationship with countries like Canada also, क्योंकि कनाडा भी एक इनका ही एक अच्छा साथी है ना। तो वो सब अपने को याद रखना पड़ेगा कि व्हाई दिस स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप इज इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड समटाइम्स यू हैव टू जस्ट यूज इट एज एन एग्जांपल, बट जब एग्जांपल में लिख रहे हो तो बहुत अच्छे से लिखना है, सिर्फ नाम लिख के नहीं छोड़ देना है, यू हैव टू राइट एटलीस्ट 2-3 लाइन्स अबाउट इट, दैट्स व्हाई व्हाट्स द पर्पस ऑफ दिस etc. you have to remember, because if we see this project from India point of view, it is going to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, तो वो यहाँ पे आना चाहिए 2 लाइन के अंदर। That is the point which is important for us. All of you also know about, when we'll discuss about India-China relationship, there's a very famous philosophy of string of pearls, है ना. तो वो भी आपको कीवर्ड वहां पे लिखना पड़ेगा. Okay, that this will counter China's string of pearls policy, which is often executed through Belt and Road Initiative, which not only affects India's interest in the region but also affects its territorial integrity, as can be seen from China-Pakistan economic corridor. तो ये एक पूरा पॉइंट हुआ. अब सोचोगे कि यार इतना पढ़ाई करके सिर्फ ये लिखना है, अगर इस क्वेश्चन में यूटिलाइज करना है तो दिस इज हाउ यू हैव टू लर्न द आर्ट ऑफ आंसर राइटिंग अलॉन्ग विद दिस. बिकॉज हम पढ़े तो गए, लेकिन अगर आप इसको एग्जाम में लिख नहीं पाओगे तो फिर कोई फायदा नहीं है क्लासेस का. और ये जब डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन आएंगे तो बेस्ट है, ये डायरेक्टली पढ़ा हुआ था. बट जब इनडायरेक्ट भी आएंगे, लाइक दिस इज एन इनडायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन, और ये टॉपिक एकदम से कोई भी नहीं पढ़ा सकता, बिकॉज यूपीएससी ने जबरदस्ती एक दो इन चीजों को मिलाया और फिर पूछ लिया. Even though writing answer is not difficult for this, but pinpointed examples are going to be required. And the expansion and strengthening of NATO, तो आपको लिखना भी पड़ेगा थोड़ा NATO के बारे में कि what is this NATO all about. You cannot just leave it, because NATO has been in news for many years. Like NATO, when Donald Trump, he was the president of USA, he used to say it has become defunct. Only we are spending. तुम सब लोग spend नहीं करो, NATO बंद कर देते. तो रोज ये कहानी चलती रहती थी उनकी. तो 3-4 साल के लिए जब तक वो रहे, यही टाइम पास होता रहा. नाटो एक्सपेंशन, नाटो ठीक है. अब सारा पॉजिटिव तो है नहीं. दिस एक्सपेंशन ऑफ नाटो इज आल्सो रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर क्राइसिस इन यूक्रेन. दैट्स व्हाई इवन व्हेन, जब हमारे सबसे ओल्डेस्ट फ्रेंड रशिया है, जब G20 का समिट हमारे हो रहा था, रशिया डिड नॉट पार्टिसिपेट, एटलीस्ट एट द हेड ऑफ स्टेट लेवल. दे डिड पार्टिसिपेट एट द फॉरेन मिनिस्टर लेवल, डिड नॉट पार्टिसिपेट एट द हाईएस्ट एपेक्स लेवल. सो दैट अफेक्ट्स आवर इंटरेस्ट. ओके, दैट अफेक्ट्स आवर इंटरेस्ट. तो ये सारी चीजें आपको एक पर्सपेक्टिव में समझना सीखना पड़ेगा. लेट अस टेक द लास्ट टॉपिक फॉर टुडे, द मोस्ट इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक जो पढ़ने में मजा आएगा, इंडिया एंड कनाडा. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग बिटवीन दीज टू कंट्रीज? वन ऑफ द हाईएस्ट डायस्पोरा फ्रॉम इंडियन साइड, एंड व्हाई दीज प्रॉब्लम्स आर कमिंग देयर. पीपीटी आपको मिल जाएगी सो दैट पिक्टोग्राफिकली कुछ समझने में दिक्कत हो और इसको बनाना भी सीख सकते हो. इन IR यू कैन मेक मैप्स इन द फाइनल एग्जाम. अगर बनाना सीख सकते हो तो देख सकते हो वो, लेकिन प्रैक्टिस करना पड़ेगा. ये नहीं कि बस पीपीटी देख के खुश होकर चले गए मुझे मैप बनाना आता है. दिस इज नॉट हाउ इट इज डन. यू हैव टू एग्जीक्यूट इट इन द टेस्ट सीरीज एंड देन एग्जीक्यूट इन द फाइनल मेंस एग्जामिनेशन. तो इस चीज का ध्यान रखना. ये नहीं कि सर ने बोला था मैप बना सकते हैं. मैप बनाना है विद प्रॉपर लेबलिंग. ये नहीं सिर्फ इधर कांडला एयरपोर्ट लिख के छोड़ दिया, लाइन लगा के, बहुत दूर तक जाएगा ग्रीस तक जाएगा, आप सोच भी नहीं सकते, बहुत दूर है. दिस इज नॉट हाउ इट इज गोइंग टू वर्क. सो व्हेन यू मेक मैप्स, मेक श्योर लेबलिंग इज करेक्ट. एटलीस्ट 1 or 2 इन बिटवीन पोर्ट्स यू हैव टू रिमेंबर. बाकी सब याद ना हो तो कंट्रीज भी बना दो, कौन कौन सी कंट्रीज से पास करेगा. राइट, तो ये वाला कोट हमने याद भी किया था, तो प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस, ना. स्कॉलर्स लाइक Parag Khanna, and this you can use for any economic arrangement. कोई भी कॉरिडोर हो, ट्राइलेटरल हाईवे. When we'll discuss the international relationship with Southeast Asia as a whole, so there are many corridors which India is trying to integrate. All of us know about Chicken Neck corridor, है ना, कि तो 70-80 किलोमीटर का रास्ता है. And this is where, है ना, India is vulnerable. Like if a war starts with China, any issue, nobody knows, it can happen. It happened like this in 1962. So if they can control this specific Chicken Neck corridor, it can separate India from northeastern region. That's why this vulnerability is going to be reduced through other parts of the world. Like we require the support of Myanmar, we require the support of Bangladesh, and this is how we are trying to create different highways, जिसके through we can ensure economic development of northeast, because northeast is the least connected region of whole of India, internally also as well as with the mainland. तो वो थोड़ी दिक्कत है जिसको हमें सॉल्व करना पड़ता है. देयर ऑल्सो यू कैन रिमेंबर दिस. से कोर्स जहां भी कोई भी आ जाए वहां पे डालना ही डालना है. इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर नॉट जस्ट लॉजिस्टिक पाथवे फॉर द ट्रांजिट ऑफ गुड्स, दे आर द नर्वस सिस्टम ऑफ ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी. और देखो जब ये थोड़ी सी पोएटिक लैंग्वेज आएगी तब थोड़ा उनको भी पढ़ने में कुछ मजा आएगा कि अच्छा चलो अगले पिछले वाले से तो अच्छा है, उसने तो ये लिखा था ट्रेड बढ़ जाएगी, कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ जाएगी. दिस इज समथिंग डिफरेंट. सो टॉपिक वाइज एक आधा कोट याद कर सकते हो. इवन इफ यू सी फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ जो बिडेन, सो ही सेज इट्स अ रियली बिग डील. मोदी कॉल्ड इट अ बीगन ऑफ dreams. So you can use the words of the Prime Minister also. It's a beacon of dreams. And Leyen, who is the President of European Commission, is kind of a bridge between continents and civilization. So in the introduction, you can write about that IMEC corridor has been hailed as a bridge between continents and civilization. And even the Prime Minister of India has called it a beacon of dreams. So this can be a very good introduction. हम सब तो देखो फिर वहीं तक ही आते हैं, ट्रेड कनेक्टिविटी होगी, 4 फैक्ट्स लिख दिए, 40% टाइम वेस्ट कम हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा. These philosophical things are the cornerstone of international diplomacy. Like when we address Russia, I will say old friend is the real friend. But जब US जाएंगे तो strategic partnership is important. Okay, democracy is important. रशिया जाके तो हम नहीं बोलते democracy is important. हमेशा जब US जाते then PM says that India is the largest democracy, oldest democracy, साथ में आ रहे हैं. रशिया जाके क्या बोलते हैं? डिक्टेटरशिप बोले ना बोलेंगे. डेमोक्रेसी एंड डिक्टेटरशिप गो टुगेदर. नहीं बोल सकते. सो दैट्स व्हाई एज पर द स्टांस ऑफ द कंट्री हमारी भी लैंग्वेज चेंज होती है, बिकॉज दिस इज अबाउट डिप्लोमेसी. हिटलर की बात सही है, व्हेन डिप्लोमेसी एंड वॉर बिगिंस. सो वी हैव टू इंश्योर डिप्लोमेसी विद एवरी कंट्री. व्हेन वी गो टू सऊदी अरेबिया, तब मोदी जी जाके ये नहीं बोल सकते ना कि डायनेस्टी देखो कैसे रूल कर रही है. इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल. डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स शुड बी सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम द इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स, और यही कनाडा नहीं समझ पा रहा है. ओके, जो आपकी लोकल पॉलिटिक्स है उसके साथ मिक्स मत करो. एंड दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई डू वी हैव द टेंशन बिटवीन इंडिया एंड कनाडा. लुक, मोस्टली व्हाट इज द करंट इशू, nobody asks question on Canada. Canada is mostly an irrelevant country if we compare it from USA, European Union, etc. from exam point of view. बट अब इन्होंने काम ऐसे कर दिए कि देखना पड़ेगा, और इसके साथ साथ में काफी सारे इशू जुड़ गए हैं. लाइक द बिगेस्ट इशू इज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द नेचर ऑफ डिप्लोमेसी ऑफ इन वर्ल्ड रिलेशंस. यू मस्ट हैव सीन इंडिया हैज यूज्ड वन प्रिंसिपल, डिप्लोमेटिक पैरिटी. कनाडा के ज्यादा डिप्लोमेट्स थे यहाँ पे ना, कि उनका हमारे 60 है, हमारे तो सिर्फ 20 है. 40 को वापस ट्रेन में बैठा दिया कि इंडिया अब ये सब नहीं देख पाएगा. यू आर क्रिएटिंग टेंशंस एक्सेट्रा. सो देयर इज अ वेरी फेमस कन्वेंशन नोन एज वियना कन्वेंशन. Please remember this convention. Vienna Convention was signed in 1961, and as per this convention, diplomatic immunity is given. You must have seen a famous case happen with one of Indian diplomat, okay, in USA, okay, and she was arrested. The case was with respect to not giving the minimum wages. She was from Andhra region. So it was about minimum wages. India में क्या होता है, minimum wage नहीं मिल रहा, कोई बात नहीं, चलो साइड हो जाओ. But in USA they are even putting the diplomat behind the bars. So this is how the laws are strict. When somebody says rule of law, this is how law works. But in India क्या होता है, इनका बेटा हूँ, उनका भतीजा हूँ, चाचा विधायक, ये सब चल के काम निकल जाता है, तो रूल ऑफ लॉ खत्म हो जाता है रोड पे जाके. But when it comes to country like USA, yes, rule of laws are strong. If you go to UK, it is even more strong because they follow this literally. Anyway, so the whole issue, I hope all of you know why this is in news. Okay, so the issue has been created over the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Okay, he is somebody who is a active participant in the Khalistani group. Khalistan issue, I hope all of you know, it's about independence of Punjab from Indian Union. This is what the Khalistani issue is all about. Punjab went through a very difficult phase in 1980s, early 1990s. The whole issue was about insurgency. Bhindranwala was one of the most famous personality at that point of time, and eventually operations were done one after the other. During this phase, we also lost the lives of our Prime Minister, like Indira Gandhi, she was shot. And when such things were going on in India, these people who had migrated to Canada, they always supported Punjab should be independent. So this is about India's territorial integrity. This is about India's sovereignty. So India can never take this issue lightly. So what happened eventually in this case, an allegation came from Justin Trudeau, allegation of a potential involvement of Indian agents in the killing of Khalistani separatists, and that is Hardeep Singh Nijjar. This is how the issue began. Okay, this issue eventually, I hope all of you know what happened with Trudeau when came for G20 summit. He came, okay. There was a famous newspaper editorial, Modi ji is saying this, right? So he's showing the way out. This is how it was depicted in Canada. This is how Trudeau was shown the way out by Modi ji. His plane, there were some technical glitches. He overstayed in India for 2 days. इंडिया वालों ने कहा चलो कोई बात नहीं, प्लेन काम नहीं कर रहा, हमारा लेके निकल लो. But निकल लो. Don't stay here for long time. Somehow the relationship is not working well. Justin Trudeau is somebody who follows the principle of appeasement in the domestic politics, and this is not happening for the first time. Okay, let me tell you very clearly. I hope in history you know about Komgata Maru incident. That Komgata Maru incident, it's a ship which has went to Canada, having certain people from region of Punjab as well as other Indian nationalities, but they were not allowed by the Supreme Court of Canada to stay in Canada, and that's why they came back and somehow they were put into jails, etc., etc. So all those things happened. So he apologized, and that again was a way, even though we accept the apology, but his way of apology always points towards the Khalistani issue. This is how it happens. So he is somebody, that's why right now he is getting criticism from all corners, not just India. Even the political parties in Canada have criticized him that how can you come up with such a statement? This statement can affect the international relation with the largest democracy, okay? Largest democracy in the world. And why are you creating this issue? Now, if we see the whole issue, how it escalated, so tit for tat situation is going on. Allegation came from the Canada's Prime Minister, India, come up with words, this absurd and motivated allegations. These are the words if this issue comes. Even though क्या होता है कि ऐसे issues normally UPSC direct नहीं पूछेगा. Like the strategic partnership between Europe and USA, that also gets reflected in that with Canada. तो वहाँ पे ये एक negative part में आ जाएगा कि not always, because I'm sure many of you must have read this, that USA, they are saying USA had already given warning to some of these groups, etc., etc. Anyway, so accusation against Canada came. Then comes the expulsion of Indian intelligence head. One of India's intelligence head, you need not write it in the exam. His name is Pawan Rai. So he was a chief of RAW. All of us know what RAW is all about. RAW takes care of what? Intelligence. Okay, intelligence from the external areas. For internal, we have which agency? Intelligence Bureau. For the external, we have RAW. Okay, Research and Analysis Wing. So he was the head of that. So he was expelled from Canada. Then Indian response was very clear. India suspended visa. Why it suspended visa? There is a kind of explanation for that, because India was now not considered safe for the you can say from India you cannot go to Canada because वहाँ पे security ensure नहीं कर पा रहा है. In fact, even many Indian diplomats, their photos, they were coming up in the public, and people were saying that if their bounty was put on their head. Okay, so all those sorts of drama had started there, and it is an open fact that Canada somehow, even though they say that it's a land of rule of law, but that is not happening in the case of these Khalistanis. So the terrorist activities in a way are being given support by the state of Canada. Deadline was given for the withdrawal of diplomats. Okay, first it was done by Canada, then India went on the reverse. India ने एक बहुत important principle लेके आया. They says, what do we want? Diplomatic parity. So please write down this keyword. This is something which was brought in by India, and they say, because many newspaper will cover that, like the West most probably will say India is not following Vienna Convention. Vienna Convention was signed in 1961. Okay, let me just give you a brief understanding what this Vienna Convention is all about. So suppose if I am a diplomat and I am residing in Pakistan on behalf of protecting the interest of India, if every day they can come and harass me, do you think I can do my work? Okay, they can come up with any issue and say and put me in jail. That's why this Vienna Convention came up with diplomatic immunity. You can remember this. Diplomatic immunity. It means for certain acts, diplomats cannot be arrested. So those specific immunity has been given to the diplomats. This Vienna Convention came at the height of Cold War, because this is what was happening between USA versus USSR. They were always going against the diplomats of the other countries. So that's why diplomatic immunity were ensured under this Vienna Convention. But India says nobody, it has been written, Canada can have 60 diplomats and we can have 20 diplomats. So India went for diplomatic parity. India says these extra diplomats which are there residing in India on behalf of Canada are creating instability. Now, the internal information nobody is going to release, because even Trudeau, even though he said that certain steps have been taken by the Indian government for the killing of the separatist Niger, but no explanation has come so far. Even their own opposition leader has said this is just on the basis of hearsay. Even we do not know what extra information is there with Justin Trudeau. So this is what is going on right now. India had suspended the visa services, but now they are saying we are going to resume it. This is a developing topic. This is not something which is going to end so early. This is a developing topic. So in the future classes, what the recent developments will also be covered. But this is what has happened so far. Allegation coming from the Canada side. India said these allegations are misled. They are motivated in nature. Then Indian diplomats were sent back by Canada. India also took a step. Simultaneously, India also suspended the visa services. Okay. Then Canada also took the same step. So right now, if you want Canadian visa, they are only from the Delhi. The rest of the major cities like Bangalore, Chennai, they have been suspended by Canada also. India has also ensured that roughly 41 diplomats, they have been sent back from India. Under which principle? Diplomatic parity. That we should have equal number of diplomats. It should not be that you can have thrice the number of diplomats that we have in your own nation. So this is what is going on between India and Canada. The importance is not in what is happening right now. If question is going to come in mains, it is going to know about what are the sweet spot of India-Canada relationship, what are the problems that we are facing right now, and how these tensions can be relaxed in a very significant manner. So this is what we have to see from mains point of view. So that's why we are going to cover this specific points with respect to this. Kindly see number 1. So if we see significance, so we have shared values of democracy, pluralism, expanding economic engagement, etc. These are the keywords which we use. Okay, democracy, pluralism, and expanding economic engagement. These words can be used for relationship like with that USA also. So these are neutral words. Diplomatic relations are of two types that we have. We have a strategic partnership as well as track 1.5 dialogue. In international relation, we have different types of diplomacy. We have track 1, track 2, and something in between known as track 1.5 diplomacy. Track 1 diplomacy means official diplomacy, like it happens between directly representatives of India and Canada. That is known as track 1 diplomacy. Track 2 diplomacy means it happens through non-state actors, like it happens through businesses, it happens through other organizations, not directly through the official channel. So that is known as track 2 diplomacy. And when a mix of track 1 and track 2 are used, that kind of diplomacy is known as track 1.5. And 1 plus 2 divided by 2, that is your C set, it become to 1.5. Track 1.5 diplomacy. So with majority of the countries, India follow track 1.5 diplomacy. But in some cases like Pakistan में बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है ये track 2 diplomacy को use करना, because trade is relatively very less between us. Okay, even though we try, like what happens when Modi ji go to any country, along with him some businessmen of India also go along, so that economic partnership can also be strengthened. So that is a kind of track 2 diplomacy. Track 1 is a direct announcement which is made between the two countries. So in case of Canada, we do have track 1.5 dialogue. Please remember these kinds of words because they can be used in your answers. That we can use track 1.5 dialogue, track 1.5 diplomacy in this case. कभी suggestion भी देना हो कि because right now the relationships which the way it is between India and Canada, they cannot only be reformed by just governments. We require, because like Mahindra said we are shifting our company from Canada. उन्होंने वहाँ बंद कर दी. ठीक है? It must have affected the employment in Canada. So it means track 2 diplomacy. If Mahindra said चलो ठीक है, now the problems have somehow been resolved, we can again come back to economic partnership, etc., etc. So that improves the state of relationship. So जब भी ये न्यूज आती है ना, तो थोड़ा सोचा करो कि इन सबको ट्रैक 1 ट्रैक 2 डिप्लोमेसी के अंदर, बिकॉज एवरी टाइम न्यूज़पेपर विल नॉट से कि डेट महिंद्रा है तो आप लोग समझ जाओ ये ट्रैक 2 डिप्लोमेसी है. This is not how it works. You have to think, okay, the whatever measures are taken not in the capacity of the state, they are mostly part of track 2 diplomacy. And when both measures are used, we say 1.5. Economic engagement is there. Okay, so if we see a chart is there. So roughly, if we see FDI equity inflow to India, so Canada has a share of roughly 0.56, सिर्फ 0.56 का, कोई ज़्यादा नहीं है, ठीक है. If we see measure of last few years, this is the roughly chart which you can remember. Canada accounts for just 0.5% of total FDI from 2020 till 2023. So when the pandemic started till roughly only 0.5% of FDI to India. Second, but Canada is home to 5.26% of overseas Indians, and that is significant. Interest of Indian diaspora. Look, not everybody is a Khalistani there. Some of them are there, and that's why we have to remember Indian diaspora. So many Indian students, they go to Canada for higher studies. So there's a data which has come. Every 7th Indian student abroad is in Canada. So suppose 14% of Indian students, they go to Canada, and that is a vital interest that we have to preserve. Canada is fourth largest source of tourists in India. So for India's economic development, we always talk about tourist promotion. तो वो यहाँ पे आप मिल जाएगा. Then bilateral trade is tiny. It is hardly 7 to 8 billion dollar. और थोड़ा सा इंडिया को सरप्लस रहता है, ठीक है. Even these things you can remember for your prelims. कि with which of the following countries India has a trade surplus. कभी कभार ऐसे क्वेश्चन आ जाएंगे. तो it's a very tiny surplus that we have with Canada. So this is the part of business, okay, or the economic engagement. Kindly see from your handout, you can easily mark it down also. Okay, so जो points हमें याद रखने हैं. Like if you see the diplomatic relationship, so in 2015 the relationship was upgraded to strategic partnership. Okay, this can be used in your introduction that India, Canada, we do have a strategic partnership. If we talk about economic engagement, so according to Invest India, it's a portal which provides lots of economic information. So whenever you write answers, तो इन सबको भी utilize कर सकते हो as per नीति आयोग, as per Invest India. So authenticity of the data improves when you can quote the name of the agency which is coming up with that economic analysis. So as per them, Canada is the 18th largest foreign investor in India with an overall investment about $3.3 billion from April 2000 to March 2023. So thus only 0.5% of FDI. If you see, this FDI is mostly in services and infrastructure sector. Pension funds have also invested in India because naturally India is a growing market. Our stock market gives more return than that of the advanced economy. So that's why there's an incentive for the pension funds to have long-term kind of investment in India. So that is there. Okay, Canada business presence. Over 600 Canadian companies have presence in India, and over 1,000 Canadian companies are actively pursuing business in the Indian market according to Invest India. Okay, then remittances, if we see, so India received nearly you can say $0.9 billion सीधा, so याद कर लो, easy होगा, in personal remittances. Okay, around $0.9 billion. That is what the remittance becomes important for us, right? Because it improves again the spending power of India. If we see, immigration accounts for 90% of Canada's labor force, and very high level of immigration is coming from India. So that's why labor force of Canada is also dependent upon this. This chart which I was showing you, it is also given in your handout. तो उसको वहाँ से पढ़ सकते हो आराम से. If we talk about foreign trade, तो roughly आसपास ही है $4 billion from each side. So overall bilateral trade, it is around $8.5 billion, and India has a very slight amount of trade surplus if we see from that perspective. India's export to Canada, you can see pharmaceutical, gems, jewelry, textile, and Canada's export to India includes pulses, timber, pulp and paper. Paper industry is very famous in Canada. If you read world geography, you would know. Okay, lots of tree production in that area is used for pulp and paper. Vibrant cultural exchange, we have percentage of Indian origin population, so roughly 3% of Canada's population. We have roughly 1.6 million people of Indian origin, and Indian immigration is one of the highest in Canada if you go by data. We have also signed pacts in different sectors. When you write answers in bilateral relation, don't limit yourself to political and economic engagement. Also bring in these new sectors which have developed over a period of time, which includes like nuclear energy. All of us know once we signed this nuclear agreement with USA in 2008, slowly we have been able to diversify our market in this arena. Like Department of Atomic Energy signed a contract with Chemco, which is one of the company from Canada. Okay, the shipment has started arriving from December 2015. Even ISRO has signed an MOU with Canadian Space Agency, and recently when like India has become a blockbuster story when it comes to space. It can be seen from multiple occasions, like Chandrayaan 3 is one of them, and even before that when we were going with hundreds of satellites in one go. So one few of the satellites are also being launched of Canada. So there is a relationship between science and tech and space also. Security and defense ties, they are also being upgraded on basis on level like countering terrorism as well as violent extremism. There was a pact signed between National Security Advisor of India and NSA of Canada. So various things have happened over a period of time. So we cannot just completely disregard. Like right now, if you see the social media is never going to talk about sense. वो या तो इधर या उधर, वो वाली situation होती है. But you as a diplomat has to always think about facts. Even in interview, they try to play upon these emotions. तो क्या करना चाहिए फिर कनाडा का खत्म कर दें क्या? ठीक है, what should be done? So you have to answer very politely that yes sir, some bilateral issues have cropped up over the issue which affect India's sovereignty and integrity, but at the same time we have to also see other interests. That is one of the interests that we have for ensuring political stability in India, but at the same time these are the other issues which we have with Canada, some positive ones, what are the problems that we have in the ties and what could be a way forward. आपको ब्यूरोक्रेट की तरह बात करनी है, आप वो टीवी एंकर्स की तरह बात नहीं करनी है, हर बात के ऊपर नेशनलिज्म लेके शुरू हो जाओ. दैट इज नॉट हाउ इट वर्क्स इन इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस. सी द हिस्टोरिकल टेंशंस बिटवीन इंडिया एंड कनाडा. अगर वैसे याद करोगे कभी कह सकता है ना कि व्हाट आर द इश्यूज इन इंडिया एंड कनाडास bilateral ties. So this is number one, that the issue over Kashmir, they said there should be a plebiscite. Then stance on nuclear test. All of us know India conducted a nuclear test and it affected India's bilateral relation with many countries, and Canada was one of them. They had even called back their own diplomat. Okay, then the issue of Khalistan has remained a prominent issue in India and Canada. So it affects India's internal security as well as political stability. Strong concerns have been expressed even by Prime Minister over this issue. Trade conundrum is also there. Trade relations are very low. If we see from the perspective of like with USA, we have more than $100 billion, and with Canada we have such a low level of trade in this point of view. So that, and we were trying to sign a bilateral trade partnership right now, and that has already been off the chart as a result of these tensions. And finally, even immigration issues, financial loss to Canada, like Indian student may start avoiding Canada for higher education because everybody wants their sure their family to stay safe, and if safety is not being ensured in Canada, out of that even that perspective is created, nobody is going to go to Canada. Even you must have, if some of your relatives have went to Canada, they would have said ki वापस आ जाओ. This starts very easily. So this can affect, because Canada's economy is relatively an advanced economy. It is not growing at a very high pace. So whatever sectors are providing it revenue to it, they are vital for this, because for them even these students, the immigration of students is an important part of their economy. So that can affect their economic interest in the long run. Not only India, in the future it can affect other countries also. So what is the path ahead? Path ahead, we have to ensure two things. We should address each other's concern, number one, and second, we should always increase economic interdependence. इससे तो समझ में आ गया होगा ना, एक basic theme हमेशा रहती है. We should create economic interdependence in the international relations. अगर वो बन जाते हैं चीजें सबके लिए आसान हो जाती हैं. ठीक है, so these are the two things which we can always think about. You can write down 2-3 points which can be done, because we also go through a lot of research. Even yesterday I was sitting कि चलो research करते हैं थोड़ा सा और क्या क्या है. तो वी ऑल्सो फाउंड अ PDF विच वॉज गिवन बाय इंडियाज मिशन अब्रोड. तो हमने वहाँ पे देखा एग्जैक्टली क्या क्या पॉइंट्स हम कर सकते हैं. तो वो थोड़ा सा एक बार एक दो पॉइंट आप उसमें से लिख लो. ठीक है. राइट डाउन. नंबर 1, both countries should take both countries should take legal measures to address political extremism. Both countries should take legal measures to address political extremism. That is number 1. Second, it talks about cultural exchange, that we should promote cultural exchange in art, film festival, etc. to understand each other's culture. Third, we should have environmental cooperation because Canada, naturally all of you know कि the Montreal Protocol, the famous protocol regarding the reduction of ozone hole, the Montreal Protocol, it is successful, the most successful environmental treaty. But the same cannot be said about Kyoto Protocol. That's why we should have environmental cooperation in the fields of climate change with Canada. Then economic diversification in new sectors like emerging technology, renewable energy, that should also be there. Okay. Plus security cooperation. Security cooperation is very important. Like we have this joint working group on counter terrorism. Okay. Joint working group on terrorism. So that is the pathway to address these things. If the political class or the diplomatic class is going to come up with this kind of issues like Justin Trudeau has just said, कोई भी bilateral relation खराब हो जाएगा. तो हमें क्या करना है? Whenever we have to go for what should be done, we should go for a multi-pronged strategy. पता नहीं किससे दिल मिल जाए, चाहे वो economic cooperation हो, environmental cooperation हो, whatever it is, or political cooperation on certain issues. So this is the way forward. This topic is still not finished, even though we have discussed a little bit, but like this topic is going to become very important in mains. तो मेंस में आते आते इसमें और अपडेट आ जाएगा. बेसिक इश्यू हमने समझ लिया कि व्हाट इज द नेचर ऑफ इंडियाज बायलैटरल ट्रेड विद कनाडा, किस किस सेक्टर में क्या है राइट नाउ, व्हाट आर द प्रॉब्लम्स दैट वी हैव, व्हाट कुड बी द पॉसिबल सॉल्यूशन फॉर दैट. बट इफ समथिंग न्यू कम्स इन तो आप भी उसको थोड़ा अवेयर रहिए. लाइक सपोज इफ यू रीड एनी आर्टिकल ऑन कनाडा एंड यू फाइंड कि यार ये दो पॉइंट मेरे को बड़े अच्छे लग रहे हैं एंड दिस कैन बी यूज एज इंट्रोडक्शन और एज कंक्लूजन और एज ए सजेशन, तो उसको इसी हैंडआउट पे लिख लो. दिस इज हाउ इट इंश्योर कि आप जो पढ़ रहे हो उसका भी फायदा हो साथ के साथ में. सपोज अब आपको कोई भी G20 पे मिले, अच्छा आपने पढ़ा तो इसी के ऊपर आपने लिख लिया. इवन दो वी हैव एड्रेस्ड मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द थिंग्स, व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर प्रीलिम्स, व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम मेंस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, यू हैव टू इंश्योर कि आप उस चीज के ऊपर ध्यान दें. प्लस साइमल्टेनियसली आप ये भी ध्यान रखेंगे कि नंबर ऑफ टॉपिक्स विच यू कैन प्रिपेयर फॉर दिस एग्जाम दे शुड बी फाइनाइट. इफ यू गो आफ्टर इन्फिनिटी तो इनफाइनाइट फेलियर साथ आते हैं. तो हमें इस चीज से बहुत बचना पड़ेगा. वी हैव टू एंश्योर दैट द प्रिपरेशन इज सिस्टमैटिक इन नेचर. यू कैनॉट गो आफ्टर ईच एंड एवरी इशू इन इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन, उससे फायदा ही नहीं होने वाला है. अब यूपीएससी आस्किंग क्वेश्चन ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड दैट टू विद सिग्निफिकेंट इंटरेस्ट ईदर ऑफ वर्ल्ड कम्युनिटी और ऑफ इंडिया, तो उसके ऊपर फोकस करेंगे ना. यही तो आपके सिलेबस में लिखा है, नेशनल एंड इंटरनेशनल इंटरेस्ट. अब अगर आप G20 देखोगे तो पूरा नेशनल इंटरेस्ट से जाके जुड़ गया है. अगर IMO से देखोगे तो वो इंटरनेशनल इंटरेस्ट से जाके जुड़ जाता है. IMO is an important organization. If we go towards global commons, I hope all of you know about the concept of global commons, जहाँ पे किसी का एक exclusive right नहीं है, जैसे अंटार्कटिका हो गया, तो global commons. So that's why we have to be selective in the approach, and along with being selective, we have to ensure we also premeditate what kind of question can come in prelims as well as mains. And the information which I'll tell you कि भाई ये information prelims में important है, please become conscious about it. It should not happen कि आप यहाँ पढ़ाई लिखाई करके जाएं और फिर लास्ट में वहाँ जाके वही मिस्टेक कर रहे हैं और खुद को गालियाँ देने बैठ के वहाँ पे. This approach is never going to work. Plus, when you solve question, because every fortnightly some questions will be given to you for solving of the current affairs, उसको solve करते रहना है साथ में. Simultaneously, the important thing for all of us would be to write certain answers. From the next class onwards, we'll take certain questions कि आपका आंसर राइटिंग भी स्टार्ट कराया जाए. Today was more about appraising of these three issues of G20, India, Canada, as well as the IMEC corridor कि कैसे ये सब चीज़ न्यूज़ में चल रहा है इन इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस. राइट नाउ इवन दो हम सोच रहे थे कि मिक्स टॉपिक करेंगे, बट वी आर गोइंग टू इंश्योर मोस्टली एटलीस्ट एट द मेंस लेवल कि आपको थीमेटिक ही पढ़ाई हो जाए. जैसे आज हमने IR का कर लिया. इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास वी गोइंग टू इंट्रोड्यूस पॉलिटी कि विच टॉपिक्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट इन पॉलिटी. In November only, we'll have one class per week. That too, we fix the day for it, Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday 11:30 to roughly 2. वो 2.5 घंटे का, कभी कभार 1:15 तक भी क्लास हो सकती है. तो करंट अफेयर्स में देखो थोड़ा सा पेशेंस डेवलप करना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज इफ आई एम नॉट एबल टू कम्युनिकेट ईच एंड एवरी रेलिवेंट थिंग टू यू तो कुछ ना कुछ छूट जाएगा. और कई जगह जैसे अब G20 पढ़ाने के साथ साथ में G7 भी पढ़ाना पड़ता है, बिकॉज मुझे ये भी डर रहता है कि अगली बार G7 पे क्वेश्चन आ जाएगा और आप लोग फिर प्रीलिम्स में परेशान होकर बैठ जाओगे. तो वी हैव टू बी अ बिट कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इन द क्लास, बट एट द सेम टाइम मेक श्योर द कीवर्ड्स, you should make a list of keywords topic wise. That is one assignment that I have for all of you for mains. कि if topic comes on G20, what are the keywords that you're going to write in an answer? चाहे वो डेली डिक्लेरेशन के बेसिस पे हो, चाहे वो आपके बाकी कीवर्ड्स हो, ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक आर्किटेक्चर. अब ये अपने आप में बहुत अच्छा वर्ड है. अब अगर आप ये याद नहीं रखोगे तो फिर एग्जाम में वही घिसे पिटे लिखोगे, इट्स अ ग्रुप ऑफ 20 इन ए दिस एंड दैट. स्टार्ट इस तरीके से करो दैट इट शुड अपील, इट शुड बी एबल टू क्रिएट दैट काइंड ऑफ इम्पैक्ट इन आंसर राइटिंग. दोनों अप्रोच को आपने फॉलो करना है. यू हैव टू सॉल्व द क्वेश्चन सो दैट यू कैन एक्सेल इन द प्रीलिम्स, यू हैव टू राइट आंसर सो दैट यू कैन एक्सेल इन द मेंस. दैट इज द अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ द करंट अफेयर क्लासेस. वी विल ट्राई टू स्टे अवे फ्रॉम पॉलिटिकल इश्यूज, बिकॉज देखो हमारा उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है. कई बार क्या होता है ना, मौज मस्ती तो उसी में ही आती है ना, कि हम बैठ के यहाँ बीजेपी कांग्रेस करना शुरू कर दें या फिर कनाडा के ऊपर ओवर स्ट्रेच कर दें बैठ के. दैट इज नॉट गोइंग टू हेल्प आवर एग्जामिनेशन प्रिपरेशन. सो वो भी हम इंश्योर करेंगे कि भाई मैक्सिमम टॉपिक शुड बी कवर्ड, ब्लैबरिंग नहीं चले. ऑल ऑफ यू कैन ऑल्सो सजेस्ट, अभी थोड़ा पढ़ लो 1 महीना, फिर सजेस्ट करना कि सर ये वाला टॉपिक इंपॉर्टेंट है नहीं है. Along with it, few topics will be covered. Like when we'll take the political theme, तो हमें पता है कि भाई electoral reforms are going to be very important topic for next year. मानते हो ये इस चीज को? क्योंकि रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ पीपल एक्ट है 1950 1951, वो आपके मेंस का टॉपिक भी है, बट वो करंट अफेयर्स में भी बार बार आता रहता है. 1950 एक्ट टॉक्स अबाउट इलेक्शन मशीनरी, 1951 टॉक्स अबाउट द एग्जीक्यूशन प्रोसेस, रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज एक्सेट्रा, वो सारा उसके अंदर आ जाएगा. साथ ही साथ में व्हाट रिफॉर्म्स हैज बीन सजेस्टेड बाय योर इलेक्शन कमीशन, द बिगेस्ट रिफॉर्म दैट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट एवरी डे इन द न्यूज़पेपर, वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट आल्सो. ठीक है. एंटी डिफेक्शन, लाइक आपने महाराष्ट्र वाला केस चल रहा है ना, एंटी डिफेक्शन विल नेवर बिकम आउट ऑफ द यू कैन से सीजनिंग ऑफ इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स. वो रहेगा ही, चाहे वो नमक की तरह रहे, लेकिन वो रहने वाला है. अभी के लिए तो वो नहीं चेंज होगा. Unless something dramatically changes in next 20-30 years, it's going to be part of it. And you can never say कि ये करंट अफेयर में एक बार आ गया था इसलिए आया. नहीं, इंडिया की पॉलिटिक्स ऐसी है इसलिए आया. ये चीज समझ लो, बिकॉज इन मेंस इट्स नॉट अबाउट जस्ट व्हाट इज इन द करंट अफेयर, इट इज ऑल्सो अबाउट what is the thematic theme we have around us. That also we have to cover in the classes. What is the allostatic portion? तो उसके साथ में हम एंटी डिफेक्शन भी कवर करेंगे, बिकॉज एंटी डिफेक्शन इज एन इशू. इट वॉज अ काइंड ऑफ इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म्स इन इंडिया कि हाँ ठीक है, इससे दिक्कत नहीं होनी चाहिए. चुन के हमने किसी को भेजा, वहां जाकर पार्टी किसी और की बन जाती है. तो इट्स अ चीटिंग विद डेमोक्रेसी ऑल्सो. कि आप हमें बोलते हैं वोट दे दो इसके नाम पे और वहां जाके कुछ और कर रहे हो. तो इट्स अ काइंड ऑफ इशू दैट वी हैव इन आवर इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स. सो इन पॉलिटिक क्लास विल इंट्रोड्यूस दीज टॉपिक्स. फिर ऐसे ऐसे बहुत थीम्स है, लाइक जुडिशरी का एक थीम है कि एवरी ईयर यूपीएससी आस्किंग क्वेश्चन ऑन जुडिशरी की what reforms they have done in with respect to environment, with respect to gender justice, with respect to electoral democracy. ऐसे करके कि जुडिशरी का एक अपना थीम है. जुडिशरी हर जगह रिफॉर्म कर देता है, बस अपने इंस्टीट्यूशन को छोड़ के. दैट इज द बिगेस्ट डायकोटमी दैट वी हैव इन इंडियन जुडिशरी. So that is one aspect which we also need to address, and that reforms in judiciary also includes representation of women, not only in the state legislative assembly as well as the पार्लियामेंट. सिर्फ वहां पे जरूरत नहीं है, वो हमें जुडिशरी में भी जरूरत है. तो यही यूपीएससी क्वेश्चन पूछ लेता है फिर बार बार. आप सोचते हो कि ये तो न्यूज में होगा, कुछ न्यूज में नहीं होता यार. ये इश्यूज हैं विच आर देयर फॉर लास्ट 10-20 ईयर्स एंड दे आर गोइंग ऑन एंड दे विल ऑलवेज रिमेन रेलिवेंट. एंड जुडिशरी से एक क्वेश्चन आना है, एक क्वेश्चन आपका इलेक्शन कमीशन, इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म्स के आसपास से आना है, तो ये चलता रहेगा। ऐसे एक थीम आपका आगे लोकल सेल्फ गवर्नेंस का आएगा, because these themes of paper 2, paper 3 is many themes are going to be clubbed with paper 1, like geography, environment and disaster management. You cannot separate these themes, they are interconnected with each other. Like if we have pollution, the next thing that you're going to have is problem of health for all of us. Okay, not only for humans, animals, everybody. The pollution is going to affect everybody. Okay, and if it goes to very high proportion, it can even become a or disaster, at least in a local area. You have not seen, when I was preparing in 2016, 7-8 दिन के लिए ऐसा एटमोसफेयर हो गया था ना दिल्ली का, एयर क्वालिटी इंडेक्स ऑल ऑफ अस इट शुड बी 50, इट शुड बी 100, 150 मैक्सिमम होना चाहिए, 850 था. So don't you think it's affecting all the people of NCR on a very high level? And that's why you say it's a silent disaster. We are not saying it, but it is happening. The incidence of health related diseases are going to rise because of pollution. और उसी के साथ साथ में कुछ थीम्स है, जैसे मान लो कि लास्ट ईयर क्वेश्चन आया था अबाउट डैम्स, कि हाउ डैम्स मैनेजमेंट आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर फ्लड इन मैनी एरिया. अब इस बार हो गया ना, वो पेपर निकला और थोड़े दिनों में आपका सिक्किम में नेक्स्ट एग्जाम्पल. सो न्यूज़ में अब आप सोचोगे कि अब तो नहीं आना चाहिए दोबारा, यूपीएससी फिर से ब्लफ करेगा, फिर वापस डाल देगा उस क्वेश्चन को. तो हमें कुछ चीज थीम्स को अच्छे से समझना है. साइड बाय साइड वी आर प्रिपेयरिंग अ लाइनअप ऑफ फैकल्टीज, ताकि वो आपको पहले पीवाईक्यूज के ऊपर कुछ क्लासेस लेके समझा दे पूरा. वो आपको रिकॉर्डेड फॉर्मेट में मिल जाएंगे, यू डोंट हैव टू कम इन द लाइव सेशंस. तो अपनी नीड के हिसाब से जब टेस्ट सीरीज के लिए पढ़ रहे हो या पेपर 2 का टेस्ट देना, तब पहले समझ लिया कैसा पेपर आया है पेपर 3 में. तो वो हम साथ में लाइनअप क्रिएट कर रहे हैं. Initially, the classes in November will be taken by me only, और कोई अभी फैकल्टी नहीं लेंगे. We are also ensuring good level of faculty should be there, because current affairs is a very big responsibility. Because आप लोग तो न्यूज़पेपर जला देते हो उसके बाद तो हमें ये इंश्योर करना है that you should get that kind of I would say analysis plus material from our side that can ensure success in UPSC. तो वो अभी प्रोसेस चल रहा है. तो इनिशियली आई विल बी टेकिंग क्लासेस, बट कुछ एरिया जैसे साइंस एंड टेक इट रिक्वायर्स स्पेसिफिक फैकल्टी, नहीं तो वो डेप्थ नहीं आएगी कभी भी. हम सब लोगों ने पढ़ा हुआ है, तो आप लोगों ने भी ग्रेजुएशन में कहीं तक पढ़ा हुआ है, लेकिन कितना चंद्रयान 3 समझ लिया आप लोगों ने मुश्किल होता है ना उसके हर एक चीज को, कि क्या प्रोपल्सन सिस्टम था, क्या किस लिए किया गया था. जिसको उस एरिया में इंटरेस्ट है, somebody who's teaching in that area for 10 years will always be better than those who have just studied it for UPSC, and that too without success or without any kind of, you can say, presentation. Anyway, तो अभी नेक्स्ट वेडनेसडे मिलेंगे. देयर आर 4 क्लासेस शेड्यूल्ड फॉर नवंबर. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट वेडनेसडे सेम टाइम 11:30 विल स्टार्ट द क्लास. ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट्स, इफ यू हैव एनी स्पेसिफिक क्वेरी देन यू कैन आस्क. तो कोशिश करो अच्छे से इसको पढ़ाई करो. एक आपको प्रीलिम्स का भी हैंडआउट मिला होगा साथ में. इसको हमने आज इसलिए कवर नहीं किया है, आई वॉन्ट ऑल ऑफ यू टू रीड इट फर्स्ट, बिकॉज प्रीलिम्स में सिर्फ बताना होता है मुझे फैक्ट क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है, उसमें कोई ज़्यादा कंसेप्चुअल चीज़ें होती नहीं. कंसेप्ट्स आर मोर इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ मेंस. उस इंफॉर्मेशन विच इज रेलिवेंट फ्रॉम प्रीलिम्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू विच वी थिंक, तो वी विल ऑल्सो टेल यू हाउ टू यूज इट इन द मेंस. जैसे अगर आप बस एक बार टॉपिक लिस्टिंग देख लीजिए, एक बार पढ़ के आ जाना इसको फॉर द नेक्स्ट क्लास, सो दैट वी कैन इनिशियली डिस्कस अबाउट दिस, देन वी कैन मूव हेड विद आवर नेक्स्ट थीम. So voice of global south summit, so yes, India is trying to become a part of it, है ना. India is going to lead this. Second, you can see Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, WTO. All of you must have seen questions coming on prelims in WTO, IMF, World Bank. WTO was very famous topic even in GS paper 3 with respect to public stockholding program of India. तो बार बार आता है WTO, तो इसलिए WTO is important. The topic number 4 is about rich and poor divide, inequality in India. So this report is very important. I'll tell you how you can use it in your mains. Prelims में तो डायरेक्ट कभी पूछ भी सकता है कि this report is given by which specific agency. So you have to remember that as an index also. Number 5 is alien plants. Okay, UPSC what will they will do in the environment, 3-4 plants के नाम लिखेगा which of उनका क्या स्पेसिफिक पैटर्न है, आपको पता होना चाहिए हाँ कौन सा इन्वेजिव है, कौन सा क्या करता है, किस तरीके से, and how it can even impact tiger habitat. This is a far stretched kind of assumption कि एक इन्वेजिव प्लांट आकर टाइगर के हैबिटेट को खराब कर देगा. तो it was there in news, and indirect statement can come in the prelims. So that's why we have chosen this. MS Swaminathan, very important personality for India. Already a question has been asked on him last year in mains 22. बट इस पे दोबारा क्वेश्चन आने का है, ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन से क्वेश्चन आने का है. इवन यू मस्ट हैव सीन इन 23 इंडिया हैज बिकम अ नेट फूड सरप्लस कंट्री. हाउ डिड इट हैपन? इन जीएस पेपर 1 अगेन इट वाज रिलेटेड टू एमएस स्वामीनाथन. तो वो पॉइंट आना ही आना है कहीं ना कहीं. देन मीजल्स एंड रुबेला, तो हेल्थ सेक्टर का कुछ कुछ आ जाता है. देन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू नासा, स्पेस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ योर साइंस एंड टेक इन प्रीलिम्स. बार बार आता है इसमें क्वेश्चन कि ये किस काम के लिए जा रहा है, व्हाट इज दिस बेनू एस्ट्रॉयड, व्हाई आर वी सो मच क्यूरियस अबाउट द यूनिवर्स, हमें ऐसा मिलता क्या है वहाँ जाके, है ना. हम लोग तो दूर से देखते हैं क्या इस हमारे मेन चीज़ है क्या, या फिर एलोन मस्क की तरह वी शुड गो टू मार्स, लिव देयर, भेज दो, मैं बड़ी ट्रिप पे भेज रहे हैं. देन एजिंग एज अ प्रॉब्लम, these facts are going to be important even for your society. Like suppose if a question comes on the state of the elderly people in India, तो you should know कि in future what is going to happen. तो ये उसके ऊपर एक रिपोर्ट आया हुआ है UNFPA का, और तो वो एजेंसी भी आपको पता होनी चाहिए कि हाँ कौन सी पॉपुलेशन फंड की रिपोर्ट है, क्या ऐसा एक्सेट्रा. रिपोर्ट पर डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है. देन वन ऑफ द मोस्ट क्रूशियल एरिना ऑफ इंडियाज interstate relation, that is water disputes. So there's multiple disputes in different parts of India, like Satluj dispute is in north, Kaveri dispute is there, Godavari dispute is there. Time and again you must have known even the article also, interstate water dispute के लिए एक specific article is there in our constitution, but still the awards of the tribunals, they are not respected by these states. At least geography point of view से we should know what are the left bank tributaries of Kaveri, right bank tributaries, and it is not asking those tributaries which are given very obviously in your NCERT. Tributaries में specifically वहाँ परेशान करते हैं आपको. तो ये आप थोड़ा पढ़ के आना so that we can finish the prelims current affair very quickly, because in the phase 2 the specific focus would be on prelims. What we are also ensuring, कल हमने बैठ के एक अच्छा प्लान बनाया है, that for environment as well as science and tech from prelims point of view will also cover the basic part plus as well as the current affairs for prelims. So this is going to happen in second half of Feb. जो prelims के लिए specific हम सबसे पहले start ही यहीं से करेंगे, environment and later on science and tech. बाकी subject के लिए देखो polity के लिए हम basic तो नहीं करा पाएंगे current affair classes में, तो थोड़ा सा आपको पढ़ना पड़ेगा. But from mains point of view जो specific prelims में data आ रहा है वो तो हम कर लेंगे. But for environment and science and tech will ensure कि एक ऐसे अच्छे faculty आए which can ensure basic plus करंट अफेयर्स, बिकॉज ये एक ऐसा एरिया है जिसमें करना ही पड़ेगा अच्छे से. सो दैट्स इट फॉर टुडे. प्लीज रिवाइज. ओके, आई एम नॉट गिविंग यू एनी क्वेश्चन फॉर मेंस टुडे. कम से कम पढ़ के आओ, क्लास में करवाएंगे सीधा. एंड देन फॉर प्रीलिम्स जस्ट रिवाइज. विल शेयर द पीपीटीज ऑल्सो विद ऑल ऑफ यू फॉर क्विक रिविजन. कोई भी देखो, अब न्यूज़पेपर अगर मान लो पढ़ते भी हो, इवन दो विल स्टार्ट शेयरिंग important articles which you have to study from a week. मान लो ये 15 आर्टिकल एक बार पढ़ लो, अगर एक साथ बैठोगे तो it will take only 1 to 1.5 hour. That will improve your essay writing skill. Okay, essay भी आपको साथ साथ में improve करना है इन चीज़ों के. That will also improve your understanding skill. क्योंकि जब सिर्फ क्लास में रहते हैं तो एक स्किल कॉम्प्रोमाइज होती है, और वो कौन सी है? खुद से पढ़ने की आदत जो होती है. एंड दिस इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एट द टाइम ऑफ इंटरव्यू. इवन फ्रॉम एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू एंश्योर कि मैक्सिमम यहीं पे खत्म हो जाए, बट उसको बंद मत करना, बिकॉज ऑल द टॉपर्स दे डू स्टडी न्यूज़पेपर, दे डू गिव लेस टाइम बट दे डू स्टडी. ये आप सब लोग ध्यान रखेंगे इस चीज़ को, ठीक है. और ये इंटरव्यू में तो और ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है हम लोगों के लिए, बिकॉज हम लोग कितनी क्लास ले लेंगे आपसे, आज का कल पूछ लिया, फिर तब तक ख़त्म ही हो जाएगी आपकी आदत न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ने की. तो उस टाइम पे थोड़ा नहीं चल पाएगा कि मुझसे थोड़े दिन पहले का पूछ लो ना, मतलब वहाँ तक मैंने सारा किया हुआ नोट्स के साथ में, ऐसा नहीं काम चलेगा. तो आपको पढ़ना सीखना पड़ेगा. माई रिकमेंडेशन इज गो विद इंडियन एक्सप्रेस, बिकॉज इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में थोड़ा सा रिलेटिवली बैलेंस स्टैंड होता है. बिकॉज इफ यू रीड फ्रॉम द हिंदू पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, हिंदू पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से पढ़ोगे ना, तो वो ऐसी चीज़ों के ऊपर ज़्यादा ध्यान देता है जहाँ पे कहीं ना कहीं मतलब लेफ्ट विंग ओरिएंटेशन आ जाती है, और वो आप नहीं यूज़ कर पाओगे इन द फाइनल पेपर. मतलब पढ़ लोगे, हो सकता है खुश हो जाओगे उसको पढ़ के, लेकिन पेपर में नहीं लिख पाओगे, ना इंटरव्यू में बोल पाओगे. बिकॉज नेचुरली सिविल सर्वेंट शुड बी न्यूट्रल व्हेन दे गिव आंसर्स. आप पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी से लीन नहीं हो सकते. तो ये चीज़ बहुत बहुत ध्यान रखनी है. एंड डोंट वेस्ट योर टाइम बाय रीडिंग मैनी ऑफ दीज आर्टिकल. रवीश कुमार हम लोगों को नहीं बनना है, ठीक है. दिस इज़ नॉट अबाउट जर्नलिज्म, दिस इज़ प्योरली अबाउट दिस एग्जाम. उस पर फोकस करना है. Okay, so that's it for today. We'll meet next Wednesday. ठीक है.